RMS PMO. You're attending the beginner RMS training. Just wanted to thank you all for attending today. We're going to have different sections for questions, but feel free to put questions in the chat, and then we can make sure we address those at the end of each of those different sections as appropriate. And then and hopefully get through this material on time. If not, then we'll either continue on or address some of those other questions and things if you needed to. Like we could address those if they're more in detail, specifically. Like I could help you out with those types of things as well. So anyway, I'm going to pass it over to the presenter, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks.
Good morning and welcome to the beginner training for OCONUS users. My name is Jennifer McGugan. I am going to be leading you through this presentation today. If at any point in time you have an issue understanding me, you can't hear me clearly, please post something in the chat and we'll go ahead and make sure we can get that taken care of. Just as a reminder, we're going to go through a couple of different sections, and in those different sections, there will be, at the end of each section, we'll have questions. So we'll ask that you hold off your verbal questions until that question section, but feel free at any point in time to post your questions in the chat if you have any questions at that point in time. All right, so as you see here, you've got our contact information. If for whatever reason you get stuck in RMS and you need some assistance, you can always give us a call at 442-333-1011, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Or you can go to our website and put in a ticket that direction. All right, so the goal of this training is basically to show you how RMS works. We don't really talk about your business practices, policies, and regulations that cover the contract itself, because that's dependent upon the district as well as the contract as well as the office. So we'll only tell you how you can use it. If you have any questions for how it is specifically used in your district, you'll have to direct that to your administrators to find out. All right. Our basic general topics for today, we're going to go over the general navigation inside of RMS, the administration, some submittals, transmittals information, quality assurance and quality control, as well as the progress payments. These are the things that we're going to talk about for the navigation. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. Very first thing you've got RMS installed on your computer is the RMS launcher. Now, the RMS launcher is really important because of the fact that it is what checks for, downloads, and updates your RMS every time we put out a new release. So if you are not getting your releases, there are two possible causes for it. One, your shortcut is pointing to the wrong location, which happens quite frequently. Or two, you haven't been logging in often enough. So one of the things that we do recommend is that you log in, or at least run the RMS launcher on a weekly basis, so that you never get behind in your updates. As you can see on the page, there are a couple of videos that are listed here. Let me get my pointer out. There's this link for a video, and there's this link for a video basically talking about how to update the launcher, and that will go through the process of showing you how to do some of that stuff that I was just talking about. All right, common errors when you run the launcher. You'll get, the biggest one that you're going to get is your computer cannot connect to the following resources, and then it'll give you a whole bunch of other stuff. 9 times out of 10, that happens because you haven't been in RMS for such a long period of time that when you try to go in, it's so far behind it cannot catch up. So this is why we recommend open up RMS at least once a week. That way you don't fall behind. Another issue that happens is you'll run the launcher, it'll pop up, it'll go through the process, and then it'll say it's starting, and then it disappears. It doesn't go anywhere. You can't see it. That happens basically when Windows doesn't know how to handle how many monitors you have. If you disconnected a monitor, if you made any changes to your monitor, sometimes it'll say, I don't open that, so I'm going to minimize it. And it will put it in a minimized state. You can fix that pretty quickly by going to this YouTube video right here. Basically, you just right-click on it, you tell it to maximize, and you're good to go. But if you don't know it, it's kind of hard to find it. So watch that video if you have that problem. Or you can always give us a call, and we'll walk you through that. All right, once you finally get past the launcher, the next thing you're going to see is the login view. Now, there's a couple of things on here that are really important. The first is going to be over here in the upper right-hand corner. This is going to take you to the link to our website, as well as take you to our JIRA website. This one is for JIRA. So one thing to note, if you're going to open up the support from RMS, you need to make sure that Internet Explorer is not your default browser, because if it is your default browser, it's going to tell you, I'm sorry, I can't find you. We apologize for that. Unfortunately, JIRA says, nope, we're not using Internet Explorer. So open it up in Chrome, Firefox, or all three of those work just fine. If that doesn't work, you can always click on this button over here for RMS support or just go to rms.usace.army.mil on any of the web browsers, and there's a link there as well. Okay, so when you go to log in, you're going to insert your cat card. If your cat name doesn't show up right here at beginning, you just click on this refresh button and then wait a few moments, and then your name will show up. Another important thing to note about this one is over here in the bottom left sort of area, what you will find is we have a service connection button. This is if you think that maybe something might be wrong with RMS, it's because you're trying to log in and you know you've got the newest update and it's telling you disconnected, or it's saying it can't connect, or something else is going on. You can click on this server connection just to see where everything is at. Everything comes up as green after you start that test, then there's something else that's going on. If something comes up as X, that means maybe something else is going on. You'll want to give us a call and find out and see what's going on. But this box underneath it will tell you all of the information that you need to know about the current patch that you are running. It will tell you which software version you're using. Let's see here. Your processing site, your launcher version, and the data server that you're getting your information from. Usually, if you call us in, we're going to ask you for your software version. That will tell us whether or not you're running the latest update or not. And finally, of course, you have the important notices down here at the bottom. This will link to all of the CEIT maintenance schedules for RMS. So this is when RMS is scheduled to go through maintenance. It needs to be updated and taken care of so that way it runs smoothly and wonderfully. Please note that all of these dates and times are in Central Time. So if it's going to start at, say, 6 p.m. on a Saturday, that means it's 6 p.m. Central Time. So if you're not in Central Time, you're going to have to adjust accordingly. All right. Once you get logged in, your first view is going to be the map view. Now, there is a slight change with how this view is looking, and when we, in the next vision, the next revision of these slides, we'll go ahead and pop that in there. But we've added the addition of a logout button up here and removed the return to login screen button that used to be down here. This way, on any screen that you see, there will be now a logout button all at this point. So at any point in time, if you want to save your changes and completely log out of RMS, you can click on that logout button. It'll take you directly back to the login screen. But what you're looking for is the district. So for you guys, most of yours is probably either going to be over here or down here in the corner for our OCONUS right now. And what you're looking for is you're just going to go and pop into your district, whatever you need, click on it, and it'll open it up. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can get to your district. You can either click on it from wherever it is located on the map, or if you've opened it up before, it'll show up in your recently used over here. Or you can click on your division in this box right here. As you can see, when you click on the division, every single district for that division will show up on the bottom. And then that way you can find those ones. All right. Now, if you are assigned to multiple districts, you should be able to access those multiple districts by this screen right here. Just make sure you click on them. If you get the login to whatever this district is failed, what you'll need to do is you'll need to contact your district administrator and ensure that they have set up the staff record correctly and linked it to your CAC in order for you to have access. All right, once you get logged into the contract, this is about what you will see. Now, between the refresh and the help button, there is a new logout button. And again, we'll have that in here the next time we go through. But right now, these are the buttons that are showing, plus the logout button right here. Now, you've got the help button the help button will bring up a little screen that will allow you to either go to our website, go to submit a ticket, check to see if you need updates on your RMS. The refresh button is a very important button. Now, the refresh button, you may or may not have noticed, occasionally it starts spinning around in a circle. That's really important because when it's spinning around in a circle, what it's telling you is that there has been some change to the contract that you are currently working in that is not on your computer at that point in time. So if you're working inside of a QC daily, or actually it'd be QA daily report, a QA daily report, and you're editing the narratives or something to that effect, and you see this little refresh button going, ding, 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 moving, 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 then you probably want to click. Now, it may not update the screen that you're actually in, but it is updating somewhere in the contract. And this way it'll prevent you from losing your data and also losing somebody else's data. Because if they enter in the information on the same screen that you're in, they back out, you're still entering information. You don't have their data. They didn't have your data. And then you click the back button and now all of a sudden their data is gone, but yours is still there. So make sure if you see this guy spinning, spin, 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 click on it. Now, the next button is going to be your back button. This is the save button for RMS. We don't have any other buttons for saving in RMS. It's just the back button. The back button does two things. It goes back to the previous screen and it saves all of the changes that you made on the screen that you were in. Okay, excuse me. And the next couple of buttons that we have, these three over here are interchangeable and don't always show up. It depends on where you're logged in. Government mode home will show up if you are logged into at least the district or contract, because the government mode home button will take you back to the map. The contract selection view will only show up if you're inside of a contract, because that will take you back to your district view. The contract menu button will only show up if you're inside of a contract, inside of a module. So say you're going into the, I'm going to use QA dailies again. You go into a QA daily, take a look at that. Then this contract menu option will show up and it will take you right back to the main screen of the contract at that point in time. Hence contract menu. A couple other things that are really good to know is up here in the upper left-hand corner, you have the name of your contract as well as contract ID. So this number here in brackets, this is the contract ID. If you ever have to put in a ticket for help with RMS, 9 times out of 10, we're going to ask you for the contract ID. This is that number that we're looking for. This number tells us quite a bit of information. It tells us what district you're in. It tells us which contract it is. So usually we'll ask for that. And to that, you will see the contract number. And if you have one, all the way next to that, in this space right here, you would have your delivery order number. All right. Once you get into your district, the view that you're going to see is right here. You're going to have a list of all of the contracts populating in this data grid down at the bottom. You will have the sort options over to the left. You will have your recent options showing up on the right. And then, of course, you have your favorites that will show up in the middle if you have any. And we have these tabs running across the top. That's for more advanced users, and we're not really going to talk about that today. But one thing that I'm going to talk about here is this little guy right here. This title right here will tell you what sort views you've got from this display right here. So if you're searching for a contract and you know that contract is in here and you can't find it, one of the reasons could be because of not showing all of the contracts in all of the districts. Take a look here first and see if you're showing the whole district and all contracts. If you still can't see it, the other thing to take a look at is down here at the bottom. There are 2 radial options for displaying the data grid in this area here. The first one is the display contracts, which is where you will see the typical view. This is where you've got the add, edit, and delete. The other one is display projects, and this one is so that you can see the P2 number as well as a few other things. But there's some stuff that's missing. This one only has an edit. There's no possibility for adding or deleting. So keep that in mind when you're also viewing something and looking for something and you think it's there, but you can't find it. There's usually probably either one of these 2 buttons or one of these sort buttons have been applied. And this is just showing you that in more detail. So you've got this one with the displayed contracts. All right, so let's go into a little bit more detail about all this stuff. So again, these are some of the district menu options that you've got. And again, we're not going to discuss those ones today, but these are the sort tiles that I was referring to. Now you can go through and take a look and click on any of these sort tiles that you want. And when you click on these, this name right here will change to whatever this sort tile is. So that way you know what you're looking at down here in the data grid. The other option is this little ellipses button that's off to the side of the office or district title that's up here. And what you can do is you can specify to see all of the district, or you can specify only to see certain offices depending on what you want. And again, the office district information will show up behind this little box right here. So if, again, you're looking for something, you can't find it, and you're pretty sure it's in here, check your sort options to see what you got going on. Another thing that we have for any place that has a data grid, basically a list of various different things that you can open up inside of RMS, you have the option to use this export button right here. Now, this export button allows you to export this list in either an Excel format or a PDF format. Personally, I prefer the Excel format, but that's just me. Okay. Favorites. So, if you've got a contract that you go into a lot of the time and you don't want to have to sit there and go through and sort through all of this stuff, scroll through all of this stuff or any of that, then you can add that contract to a favorite. All you need to do is open up the contract. You can double click on it or you can single click and choose edit. And when you get into the contract, there's a button underneath the help button. Remember, there's a log out button right here now too, that says mark as favorite. Once you click that mark as favorite, click on the back button, then you will see it will show up right in this favorite box in the middle. Now, as you can see, you have the option of having 4 favorites. Then you're only going to be able to display 4 favorites at a time. So pick your favorites wisely. The same thing with the recents, I forgot to tell you. It will always show you the last 4 that you've been in. So every time you go in, the recents will update based off of the last ones, and they'll move down, 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 down until they disappear. Unless, of course, you go in the same contract all the time, in which case you can just click on it up here. Excuse me. Instead of trying to hunt and search for it down here. All right. So another way to view the data grid is by using grouping and sorting. Now, if you want to sort this information, there are these title headers up here where you can click on them. If you click on them the first time, what it's going to do is it's going to sort it from ascending to descending. If you click on it a second time, it's going to sort it from Z to A. And then if you click on it a third time, it's going to remove the sort entirely. Now, you'll also notice in a couple of different places that we also have these other blue tiles randomly hanging about in RMS for when you have a data grid. Usually these blue tiles that are square like this means that's some kind of sort view as well. And what you can do is you can just click on any one of these buttons, and of course it's going to change this title right here and only display what falls into these sort groups down here at the bottom. And one of the other things about this data grid is slightly different than most other data grids. And for reports, this is the default data grid. But you have the ability to group these, and that's what this is right now. So this is grouped by the report menu. So you'll see that the report menu under admin, these are all of the reports under admin. For closeout, these are the reports under closeout. For finances, these are the ones under finances. You can group them by various different title column headers by clicking on it and drag it. And well, you'll see this a little bit later as well, where you'll have more information for that one. The other option that we've got is for filtering. So for all data grids, there is going to be a little funnel icon to the right of each column header. And when you click on these filter icons, it's going to bring up a little menu and it's going to ask you what to filter by. Now, in the top box, it's going to show you every single possible option that you currently have in your contract. If something doesn't show up in there, that means it's not in your contract at this time. Doesn't mean it won't be in there in the future. It just means at the time that you click on that filter, it's not in there for that particular data grid. you can either select the ones that are from here, you can specify exactly what you're looking for, you can specify something that's similar, and then you can choose the filter button. And when you're done with that, you'll click on the X button, and then you'll see the filtered results in the data grid. Now, when you want to remove it, you've got to click back on the filter and choose clear filter, and then again, click on the X button to get it to go away, and it will return back to normal. As you can see, there's a link here for demoing that for a live demo. You can view that at your leisure if you want more explanation on how that goes through and works. Then we'll also talk about the sorting and the grouping that I talked about too. Okay, my favorite feature when using stuff with data grids is the sort box. This is my favorite feature because I don't know about you guys, but when I try to find something in a list of over 100 different things, it makes it very difficult for me to find exactly what I'm looking for. So to save myself a lot of time and effort, I just type in some information about what it is that I'm looking for. And as soon as you start typing in these letters in the search box, this data grid will start reducing until either there's only one left or there's a couple left. And for me, that's just so much easier for me to use. And if you find that you go through and you're looking and looking and looking and looking and it takes you more than a couple of seconds, I'd go for that search box because that'll make your life so much easier because it'll go faster. All right. Oh, and here's the export button one more time. And in this case, this is what it looks like when you click on the export button. You, of course, got the Excel option and then the report option. Now, note when you choose the Excel option, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the dialog box for you to save it. After you click on save, wait just a few minutes, and then your Excel is going to pop open showing you what it is that you just exported. So it's not going to save it and leave it there. It's going to save it and actually open it for you to look at and do something with it. So just keep that in mind. And the reports will do the same thing. But honestly, I prefer the Excel. That's me. Okay. All right, so this is what I was talking about with the grouping earlier when you want to change the data views so that way it's grouped by something specific. So if you want it to be grouped by menu, by the menu, report menu, what you'll do is you'll click and hold on this title right here, and you'll drag it up to this gray spot right here. And that will change the grouping of this particular data grid so that way you can look at it. Now, to note that this grouping is temporary and only for your view only. So if you go ahead and group this, don't worry, nobody else is going to see it but you. So if you don't like it, you can just ungroup it, no problem. Now, when you pop it up here, if you decide you don't like it, there's a little X button that's off to the right. You can click on that and remove that grouping and send it back to this. Or you can just click on the back button and go back in, and it will reset itself. So every time you go into a data grid, the typical view is similar to this, with the exception of the reports. The reports are always grouped by report menu. So I think the reports as well as the contract file, those two are always already defaulted to grouping, but everything else is going to default to this regular view that you're seeing right here. And again, there's a demo for grouping. There's a link for the video right there. Oh, and for those of you that need to know, the link for these slides are on our website. You can go ahead and download them if you want to watch any of those videos or read any of this little information that I'm completely skipping over. Because this information is important. For the most part, I'm going to go over most of it, but I'm going to give you more details over here. So if there's anything that you want to go back and see if there's extra information, you can go ahead and take a look at that. All right. So the next thing that you're going to really notice when you log into the contract is your action items dashboard. And that is big, bold, and right smack dab in the middle. And that's just so that way you know when something is going on. So if you have your action items set up, then you will have numbers and colors that are associated with these boxes right here. There are 4 colors associated with these boxes. You have green, which means nothing is due. You have orange, which means low priority items are due. You have yellow, which is medium priority items are due. And then you have red, which means you have outstanding items of high priority that are due, like now. So that's what the colors mean. So anytime you see those colors, just know green, you get to go. Yellow, you got some low stuff that needs to be taken care of. Medium, you got some medium items that need to be taken care of. And red, oh, that's a full stop. You need to get that taken care of because it's a high priority item. And then, of course, it's grouped by government action items, contractor action items, and my action items. And we'll talk a little bit more about my action items in just a second. Okay. All right. So what you're seeing right here is the two different action item dashboards based off of government mode and contractor mode. So just know that your contractor is not going to see the same things that you guys are. So they're only going to see the contractor action items and the my action items. And the my action items has to do with who's been assigned to do a certain task in the action items control menu. We'll look at that in just a second. But if you've been assigned to do something and the action item is due, past due, it's going to show up in a color right here, and you're going to have a number, and it's going to tell you if it's a high, a medium, or a low based off of these numbers. And these numbers will tell you how many you've got. You can click on that just to open up a quick, brief view of what's missing. But for the details, I would advise you to go over to the contractor or government action items report. There's two of them, one for government, one for contractor, to see what the details are, because what's in the dashboard is just pretty generic, letting you know, hey, this needs to be done, but it doesn't tell you which one. So I would go over to the report to check that. All right. So to set up the contract action items, you have to go into the action item control module. This action item control module is in the administration tab. And when you open it up, this is the view that you're going to get. And of course, you've got your short tiles up at the top that you can go through and click on to view various different things. You have, oh, it's so tiny. You've got the ability to copy, enable all, or disable all of the action items. So the thing that you're going to be looking at, this one's already grouped, in this case, government or contractor. But what you can see in this is it tells you who the action item belongs to, what the action item is for, and the title of the action item, as well as what the alert level is and whether or not it's enabled. And this last column right here tells you who is responsible for that one. And this is where you'll end up getting those my action items from. It'll come from this area right here. You also have the ability showing right here to either show all of them or only show the ones that are enabled. So you can see, okay, what do I have enabled? Let me click on this radio button. It will change this view so that way you only see the ones that have yes marked right here. You can also do that by clicking on this filter button and checking the yes box there too, but the radio button is faster. Now, say you want to actually enable something. You're going to click on the action item, single click one time to select it, and then you're going to come here down at the bottom to do all of the work. You can enable and disable it down here in this area right here. You can assign it to someone by using the staff lookup field right here. And if there's any description, it will show up in this box right here. All right. Document packages. Now, there's a lot of information on this. I'm going to actually go through all of this on another screen. So go ahead, download the slides and read this at your leisure. This is for your reference in the future if you ever want to come back and just read some of what we were talking about in there. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that. All right, document packages. Pretty much everywhere where you need to send or share something or receive something from between the contractor and the government, there's going to be a document package down at the bottom, and it will look something like this. You have the ability to add document packages, edit them, and delete them. Now, I don't really use this edit button because it's one extra step. I usually just double click on what's already in there to open it up. Otherwise, you have to single click and then you come over here and click on edit. It'll get you to the same place, but I like to double click, personal preference. And then once you are inside the document package, you have the ability to add, edit, or delete documents that are in that document package. This also depends on the status of the document package, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So remember, documents are all shared in document packages, but there are two types of document packages inside of RMS. The most widely used one is the shared or contractor document package. And this is where you want the contractor to send you information and you want to send the information to the contractor. It goes in the shared or the contractor document package. Now, there are times that you actually don't want the contractor to see a document, but you do want it attached to this item because you need it for internal purposes. Then we provide you with a government document package. Now, this document package is usually underneath. If there are two, then it's usually underneath. It's the bottom one. If you add anything to the bottom document package, just know that's not going to go to the contractor, and that's on purpose. We don't want it to go to the contractor. All right. Once you have added a document package or opened up the document package, this is the view that you're going to go in. Now, as you can see here, there's a lot of information in here. I'm going to allow you to read that later at your own time. I'm just going to go over the basics on the next screen. All right, adding files to a document package. Hold on, let me back up 1 second. So we do have sort tiles in the document package that are showing up right up here. These sort tiles also tell you how many of each document type are showing up in here. And you can, of course, click on them to reduce what you see in this list down at the bottom. And then if you want to view all of them, you just have to go back and click on this all attachments to view everything down there. Now, to add files to the document package, we have a couple of different ways you can do it. You can do it manually by clicking on this add and upload from file system, or you can actually drag and drop it. So you have your file explorer open over off to the side, your RMS open here. You click on these two icons, you click and hold, you drag them over to this box, or you can drag them down into the white box underneath. And if either location, what it will do is it'll go ahead and upload those files into the document package. Now, note, there is a limit of 250 megabytes per document. There's no limit on how many documents you put in the document package, but each document cannot exceed 250 megabytes. So keep that in mind. Now, let's see here. And it'll also tell you this title right here also tells you which document package you're currently in. So it says it's in document package, and it tells you, in this case, we're in an RFI response for 0013. So always pay attention to this because it'll let you know where you are. And of course, if you accidentally add a document that you didn't mean to, we've provided this delete button, but proceed with caution. Because if you're deleting a signed legal document, that could be potentially problematic. So only delete things that you know for a fact should not be in there. Right. Next. So this is some of the information on reading the actual document itself. So you have a document the contractor sent to you and you want to take a look at it. There's two different ways there's actually a couple of different ways you can open it. You can single click on it and choose view. You can single click on it and choose edit, or you can do my favorite, which is just double click on it to open it up. And that will allow you to open up the file to take a look at it. Now, if you want to save it, you have to single click on it and either choose export selected documents or save document to file, either one. Now, the nice thing about this export documents is it'll allow you to choose more than one to download at a time, whereas this button is only going to allow you to choose one to download at a time. So if you want to download everything, use the export button up here, not this export, because that's just going to give you the list of what's inside. You want the export that's up here at the top. And I think we will show a bigger screen of that in just a minute. And again, after you've made any changes to this one, you always use the back button because it's your friend and it's the save button. Also, when you single select a document, you have the details for that document showing up down here. It gives you the date of the document, it gives you the title of the document, and it gives you a description if anybody put a description inside of it. Now, it does look like you can edit this, and you can. The thing is we recommend don't edit the first part of the name, because if you change this first part of the name, it will make somebody coming behind you it will make their job a little more difficult if they have to find this particular document from within either PCF or the contract file, because these titles are showing up in here to make it easier for you to search for the particular documents. I also wouldn't remove what transmittal it came from, the specific one. If you want to add extra titles, like, so this is for super tiny on my side. Let me see if I can blow it up. mouse. There we go. Bing. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. So in this particular case, if we're looking at this particular transmittal and I know that it's some picture of a thing, I can just add a dash at the end and say picture of building. Yeah. Then that way I still know it's for that transmittal. I still know it's for the government remarks, but now I know exactly what it is. All right. So some things to note while inside of this document package. You will see that you have the ability to see if the documents have been signed, because they'll show up in these two columns right here. Now, this column is for the contract signature, and this column is for the government signature. Now, there are two different types of signatures that you can add into RMS. The first is electronically signing, and the second is manually signing. If you have anything that's manually signed, you'll be able to tell because it will say attested signature attached. So that's when you know that something is manually signed. We've also added a PCF status file inside of most of the document packages. I believe that's where that's at. And it just lets you know if the document is ready to send to PCF or not. And in this case, none of these ones are because this document package is not completed. Now, keep in mind, if you need to send documents to PCF and your documents are not going, if you look at the document package and it says in review or not complete, then it's not being sent to PCF. It's not until you accept it that you can actually send it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But again, here's the option for deleting. And when you delete, RMS is going to ask you, are you really sure you want to do that? Because these can potentially be legal documents. And one thing to note, if you delete a document out of the document package, it also gets deleted out of the contract file. Now, I say this because anytime you add a document to a document package, it gets added to the contract file module, which we'll discuss here in just a little bit. So if you delete a document out of a document package, it's going to be deleted everywhere in RMS. So it's never a good idea to assume, oh, well, it's over in the contract file, so I can just delete it from here. No, it deletes from both places. So if you want to delete it, just make sure that you actually really want to delete it. All right, signing the documents. So inside of the document packages, there are only two types of documents that you can electronically sign inside of RMS. That is PDF files and Word documents. And what you will notice is that if you are signing a Word document, the number for that Word document will decrease and it will increase the number of the PDF document. That's because in the process of signing the Word document, it gets converted to a PDF document because you don't want it to be edited after it's been signed. So it must be converted to a PDF document. Now, the other thing, if you want to sign multiple documents at one time, you can, or you can do a single one. You simply just select one document, click on this Sign Selected Document, and it's going to bring up this list of all the documents that will be available for signing. So if there's an Excel document, it's not going to show up in here. Any images, they're not going to show up in here. The only ones that will show up are PDF and Word. And if you need to select more than one, make sure that you're using these checkboxes over here only. That way you don't accidentally click here and wait a minute, only one of those is selected. That's not good. So use the checkboxes because that will allow you to select more than one at a time. Now, only select more than one at a time if they have to have the signature in the exact same location. If they are different locations, you'll have to sign those separately because you only have the option of using one signature position. All right, so let me actually go back a couple of slides because this one right here. So one thing that I forgot to talk about in this particular one is for when you're ready to send this to PCF. So everything looks good. Everything's the way it's supposed to. You've signed the document. You've added your remarks down here and everything is good to go. You're ready to send all of these documents to PCF. You need to click on this Accept Package button. Prior to clicking on this button, nothing will go to PCF. So you need to make sure you click on this one. Once you click on this button, there is a 24 to 72 hour period in which it will take for the documents to get sent to PCF because that's done on a nightly basis. Usually, well, that would be our nightly, but no, it's nightly by district. So it would still be your nightly. for when it gets sent. So if you notice that you click on that accept button and the document says ready to send, and the next day you come in, it still says ready to send to PCF, and you're like, wait a minute, I clicked that button, why didn't it go? It's okay, just wait. It just means that there's a lot of documents that need to be sent over to PCF in your district, and it might take it a couple of days before yours comes up and ready and gets sent to PCF. After 72 hours, if you still don't see that it has been sent to PCF, contact the help desk support, because we'll be able to go in there and see if something squirrely is going on and see if we can't help that along. All right, so that brings us to our first section of questions. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Any questions that you might have. If I don't hear anything within the next 30 seconds or so, we'll keep on going. Okay, so since I do not hear anything at this time, I'm going to go ahead and continue. On to Administration tab. This is a list of pretty much what we're going to be talking about in this particular section. Now, some of the items are missing that are actually in this tab that we're not actually going to talk about because that's either outside of the scope of this particular training or we've already talked about the action item control. So, moving on. This is the view. When you first log into RMS, the very first thing, the default view is going to be the Administration tab and all of the modules that will show up in this tab. And we're going to go ahead and talk about some of those. One thing to note, this picture right here is going to be your contract status photo. So if you set up a contract status photo, it will show up right here. Now, if you don't have one set up, there's a default of some people just standing around, construction workers standing doing something. I don't remember what it is now, but there is a default image that will show up. And if that's the image that you're seeing, that means you don't have a contract status photo uploaded into RMS. And we'll talk about that in a moment. All right. Here's a bunch of information that can be done inside of RMS. You can go ahead and read that later at your leisure. That's for your reference. I'm going to go right into it. And we are talking about, these are going to be the modules that we're talking about again. All right. The very first module that we're going to be talking about is the contract description module. Inside of this contract description, there's a couple of different things that you can look at. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can see this a little bit better. Here we go. Now, this top part of the contract description is only editable by the government. The contractor can see this module, but they cannot edit anything up here at the top. So what will need to happen is the government will need to go in and add the top information first. And the only thing that's really very, very, very important is the contract number and the delivery order number. If your contract is linked to a CEFMS account, these two must match CEFMS exactly. And when I mean exactly, I mean exactly. If there are spaces in CEFMS, these need to have spaces. If there are dashes in CEFMS, these need to have dashes. And the thing with the delivery order number is also very particular. If you have no delivery order number, but CEFMS says N/A, then this needs to say N/A. Otherwise, it will sit there when you try to do a CEFMS download or try to get the contract information or send payments to CEFMS, it'll say, that doesn't exist in CEFMS, I'm sorry. And you're going to be like, yeah, it does. That just means you need to go over to CEFMS and see if somebody updated the contract number or the delivery order number without letting anybody else know that it needed to be updated in RMS as well. So keep that in mind. Now you can change the office by clicking on the select contract office. If you need to, you can add the long title, the regular title, the short title, and the fiscal year. Now let's see, let's moving down. Okay. Actually, no, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. The contractor cannot see this particular module. I apologize. They can see other stuff, but they can't see this one. So all of this stuff has to be filled in by the government. I apologize. It's still too early for me. Let me get my coffee. And you've got a couple of checkboxes that you can use, but the most other important stuff is the contract description. And then you have these options for looking up the funding types, the customers, and the methods. And you can put in the latitude and longitude of where the work site is and some wage determinations with dates and all this other information. How you fill out this particular form is based off of your district's policy, so keep that in mind. All right. The next module that we're going to be taking a look at is the contract status module. Now, the only two things that we're going to discuss in this particular training is going to be the contract status photo tab and the phase status photo tab. Sorry, status issue tab. So let me zoom in on that so we can actually see a little bit better. There we go. So the first view that you're going to get is the contract status view. And when you come in, it will show you whatever contract status view is your current view, which is what you saw in the login part. And it'll give you the option for uploading a new one, saving it to your computer, or viewing it outside of RMS. If you want to blow it up and look at more details that are inside the actual picture, you can do that using these buttons right here. And down here at the bottom, you'll have a history of all of the status photos that have been uploaded. And there's going to be a little checkbox over here that will tell you which one is the current one. Now, if you want to go back and use an older one, you can, but we don't really recommend that because you really should be updating this on a monthly, actually, I think it's a bi-weekly. Depends on your district, honestly. But you really should be updating this at least periodically as things change as the construction process goes through. Okay, so this is just talking about the uploading the save and the view status, as I was just saying. On to the contract status phase status issues module. Let's go ahead and zoom in so we can see this a little bit better. Up at the top, you'll be able to use the lookup blue box right here to select what stage and status your contract is currently in. You'll be able to show your delay codes if there are any. You'll be able to add any remarks, any issues, and any basically contractor issues, government issues. And then, of course, you're going to want to enter this date. Now, keep in mind, you need to enter this date every time you make a change in here, especially if you have the action item turned on for this. Because if you update this information, but don't change this date, then later you're going to back out and it's going to say, hey, guess what? You haven't updated your contract status. You need to go in there and update it. Hello. And you're like, wait a minute, I just did that. And it means you need to go in and update the date. Keep that in mind. And then down here at the bottom, if your contract is linked with P2, your P2 fields will show up. If it's not linked with P2, then these ones are not going to show up down here at all. But this is the information that's going to be pulled from P2. And of course, you have your cost time growth showing up down at the bottom. This is good for some of your metrics. It'll give you a brief overview of what's going on with your contract, and it will tell you some of the milestones quickly on this view as well. Oh, it's not doing what I want it to. There we go. Next. All right. The next module of interest is the contract personnel module. When you go into the contract personnel module, this is going to allow you to set up who's going to be your delivery team for this contract. And this will show the list of all of the users in the particular office that your contract is associated with. And if you want to add them to the list up at the top, because they're part of the delivery team, you can use the add button here. And I think I don't have a zoomed up view, so let me try and zoom in here. There we go. So that's your add button, this is your edit button, and this is your delete button. Now, you will notice a lot of the times what you'll see is the word add, edit, and delete, but occasionally you'll see these little shortcut icons where it's a plus sign, a pencil, or an X sign. Those are the same thing, add, edit, and delete. So just keep that in mind. These are the shortcut views of that. Once you click on the add button, it's going to bring up the next screen. Zoom in over here, which is going to be a staff lookup. So you're going to have a list of all of the staff that you can choose from. Once you've chosen that staff, you're going to click OK, and then it will go in and it will say, okay, what position title do you want this person to be? You'll click on this lookup field and it will search through the list of all of the position titles that have been added to your district. And once you have chosen that, you click on the back button to save it, and voila, the person is now added to your project delivery team members. Excuse me. And again, when you are done, the back button is your save friend, and you're going to click on back to go on to the next screen. All right. So, in this particular case, this is talking about deleting. So say you added someone to the project delivery team that actually wasn't the person that you wanted to add. You can single click on them and choose the delete, little delete icon here. And it's going to ask you, are you sure? And you're going to say, yes, I'm sure. And no, cancel, don't do that. And then of course it will update this view as well. Oh, and there's a little blow up picture of which icon we're talking about. All right, contract documents. Oh, this needs to be updated. This should say contract documents, not contract personnel. I apologize. Make sure that takes care of that. Now, the contract documents, unless your contract is extremely old, meaning it predates 3.0, then you're not going to have anything in here. So for those contracts that started off in 2.3.8 and were moved into 3.0, any documents that were added document packages in 2.3.8 will show up in this contract documents module, and you'll be able to see all of that stuff. But for the most part, you won't use this if you're using a new contract. All of the other files are in the contract file module, and this gives you a key feature list of all of the things that you can do. You can read that later at your reference. I'm just going to go right into it. When you open up the contract file, the first thing that you're going to see is this view right here. Now, if you don't see everything in this list, that is okay. Let me zoom in here so we can see this a little better. There we go. So what shows up right here is going to be based off of what documents have been added to your contract. So if this is a brand new contract, no documents have been added, there's not going to be anything in this data grid at all because you haven't added any. Don't worry, as soon as you start adding documents, this list is going to start populating and you're going to be able to start seeing some of this stuff. So when you go in, you don't see, say, the labor option for C, and you're like, wait a minute, I see B and D. What happened to C? It just means you don't have anything with labor, and that is okay, because you don't always have to have everything. Now, let's come over here. There we go. When you want to go through and take a look at the documents that are in the contract file, the first thing that you're going to have to do is expand them by using these little arrows here off to the side. So the first thing you're going to do is expand the first group. And then this one is grouped twice. This is the folder and the subfolder. Then you're going to expand the subfolder to see all of the documents that are associated with that particular folder and subfolder. Now, if you want to expand everything quickly, we have this option right over here. And if you want to close everything down quickly, then you have this option right here. You can use all of those for doing any of that kind of stuff. Now, in the contract file, you do have the ability to manually add, edit, and potentially delete documents. Now, again, remember, anything that is deleted from the contract file is also deleted from the document package. So make sure that when you click that delete button, you really actually mean to do that, because otherwise it's gone, unless it was sent to PCF. If it was sent to PCF, you're good, because it's still in PCF. All you have to do is download it and load it back up. You're good to go. But just remember, just because you delete something from here, if it was already sent to PCF, then it's in PCF. It's part of the legal record and it's there. So be careful when using this delete key. Just because you deleted an RMS doesn't mean it's been removed. Okay. All right. So when you click on the add button, you have the ability to manually add the document. Occasionally this does happen. Zoom this in and take a look at it. There are a couple of things that you've got. When you first open up the add button, the only two buttons you're going to have available are for generate document or select the document. Now, this generate document allows you to pull the document templates. So they'll have like pre-filled out memos and things like that, where you click on the generate, you choose the correct document, you fill out all of the information, enter whatever extra information that it prompts you for, and it will generate that document. Or, of course, you can upload it from your computer. Once you've added a single document here, because you can only add one at a time here, then you have all of these other buttons over here that are showing up. And what you can do is, if you want, you can edit it, you can remove it, you can view it, or you can save it, depending on what option you need. It will tell you what the file name happens to be, which you cannot change. But it will allow you to update the document title. Now, this document title, again, is similar to what's in the document packages. I would not recommend changing the prefix of the title. You can always add the extra details, but I wouldn't update the prefix, because that will make finding the document much harder at a later date and time. And this is the only place where you can actually update the date of a document, because this one is not based off of when it was added to RMS. It's based off of when you click on the date. And then, of course, you can add the description down here. Once you've added it, if it's a PDF file or a Word document, you can then go through the process of signing the document by clicking this button. Once it's signed and ready to go, you can then click on this completed button. After you click on the completed button, the send to PCF button will populate, so that way you can click and send it off to PCF. Again, this is not an immediate process. It's one of the few ones that are not, and it will take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours before or after you click on this button before it actually gets sent to PCF. All right. Manually editing a document. This is where you use the edit, the remove, or the view document, which we just talked about. All right, contract setup. Now, with the exception of this tab right here, which has been removed, these are the tabs that you will more than likely see. Now, most of these tabs, you'll want to get these all set up before you get started, but sometimes you'll want to come in and just double check on things. So you have the option of doing that, and we'll talk about those tabs shortly. And as you can see, this is the contract setup module. It looks like these. All right. The administration tab. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that button. There we go. All right. Now, with the administration tab, you've got all of the administration possibilities of checking things to get things set up for this contract. Use it with CEFMS, set up the CEFMS district, use it with P2, use P2 prior to award, using only one phase, tracking contractors' insurance, the payrolls, the labor interviews, the DD 1354, and if you want to make sure you're sending documents to PCF, you have all of these checkboxes available for you. Now, there's this other extra little checkbox right here, allow government to enter contractor data. Use this with caution. You really want the contractor to be entering their own data. You really don't want to be doing their job for them. Don't make your job harder. So don't use this unless you absolutely positively have to, but we do provide it in case you do. Now, please note that when you check this box, it's going to ask you to identify yourself. It's going to say, who are you? Let me verify this first. And once you verified yourself, it's going to check that box, but it's also going to log it in the system that, hey, this person at this time on this day made this change. So keep that in mind. If you are going to use this, make sure you get authorization first before checking that box, because it will record who, when, where, why, and how this was checked. Now, this option down here is going to go away because 238 has been sunsetted, so it's no longer on here, but for the moment, you'll see it on this screen. And then, of course, you can set up your funding. Most are set up with the default of track funding at funding account level prepayment obligations for payments on all claims. However, there are two other options that you can choose from, but that's outside of the scope of this particular training. And of course, you can set the currency type. All right. Payments and modifications. Zoom in here. All right. When you go into the payments and modifications, what you'll see is this first little data grid showing up right here. This is one of the few that is not editable in RMS because it does not come from RMS if the account or if the contract is linked to CEFMS. All of this information, these obligation line item numbers, this stuff, this all comes from CEFMS if the contract is linked from CEFMS. Now, as you can see, this one here, it says NC non-CEFMS account. Because we didn't set this one up, we don't have access to CEFMS, so we don't actually use CEFMS for most of our testing stuff. What you will see for our stuff is it's just going to show up this way. But most of the contracts that I have seen have been linked to CEFMS, and all of this information, these numbers here, come from CEFMS. So if this doesn't look right to you, you got to go to CEFMS to fix it because it's all from CEFMS. Okay. Now, you also have the ability to set up who is responsible for the ACO modification and who is responsible for the CO modification. And you can either click on these lookup fields or the boxes next to them in order to fill them out. And then, of course, you can add the titles if need be. QA, quality assurance in the contract setup module. All right, let's zoom in just a little bit. There. All right. Under the QA tab, the quality assurance tab, what you will see is the QA report type. Now, there are that I've seen used most, but there are a couple of different options that are set up as well. But most of the ones that I've seen have been either military or civilian. But note that whatever you set up for the QA report type also affects the QC report type. So they'll be exactly the same. So if you set it for military, then the contractor is going to be using military. If you set it for civilian, it's going to be using civilian. And what you choose is going to be based off of your district's policy. You can set who the project engineer and the on-site core happens to be. You can set up shifts and who the person is for that shift. When you click on this drop down and choose more shifts, you'll have more fields down here showing up, so you can set their names. You can set date. And you can also set some particulars about if you know weather is going to be bad, that information, what the expected work week is, and what the actual work week ends up being. All right. Schedules and submittals and schedules. Let's go. Yeah. All right. So for the submittals and schedules, what you see on this tab, this is where you're going to set up more than one register. And this, whether or not you have one register or two submittal registers, is going to be dependent on your district's policy. So prior to clicking on this button, make sure you check with your district's policies to see if you actually should be using more than one register. Now, you can just edit them or delete them if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend changing this stuff unless you know for sure that you need to do that. The next important thing on this screen is this guy right here, compute submittal need dates based on activity schedule. I would recommend using this one because it will save you a lot of work in the long run. Because basically all you have to do with this, you won't have to worry about updating the due dates for the submittal items because it will automatically do that based on your activity schedule. So once you have approved the activity schedule, then the submittal due dates will update based off of that activity schedule as long as the submittals are set up correctly. And we'll kind of hit on that a little bit later. All right. You can also set the government reviewer and who is supposed to address the 4025 packages being sent to. And then you can set up whether or not that contract is going to be using a SDEF file or if they're going to be manually entering scheduled start and finish dates. Now, personally, from what I have seen, contracts that are using SDEF files are actually easier to go through and administer, as well as take a look at and debug and quote unquote fix if something goes wrong, because you've already got the file, everything is already preloaded into everything. You can preload a bunch of stuff using the SDEF file. So I would highly recommend that you use an SDEF file and force that in the thing, because it will save both yourself and the contractor in the long run use this SDEF file, because otherwise they can put everything in one program. They can set up the payroll, well, not the payroll, excuse me. They can set up the activities, they can set up the schedules, they can set up the submittal due dates, they can set up a whole bunch of stuff all at one time. They can set the activities to a CLIN, they can set the activities to a feature of work, they can set the 3-phase inspection set dates and stuff. They can set all kinds of stuff. And it will save a lot of work in the long run by going through and using that option. So I would highly recommend using the SDEF, but again, it's up to your district's policy and your contract. Of course, cannot force that. I just highly recommend it. Now, the one thing that's not showing up on here, because this is specifically for manually scheduling start and finish dates, is that if you use an SDEF file, there's a little checkbox down here that can force the contractor to enter the actual start and finish dates using the QC reports only. So even if their scheduling software has actual start and finish dates, when that checkbox is checked down here, it doesn't matter what's in the SDEF file. When they import the SDEF file, those dates will be ignored because the contractor will have to do it inside of the QC daily report only. So the SDF file will give you the scheduled dates, but not the actual dates. It will not match what is in their scheduling software unless they go into a QC report and update the dates in the QC report. Okay. All right. On to P2 projects. If your contract is linked to P2 project, it's going to show up over here in the P2 project module. And you can add it to a P2 project by using this add button. It's going to bring up a lookup field for all of the P2 projects that are available for you to choose from. If you don't see the list of what that is, there are a couple of things that you need to make sure are properly set. The first one is that it has a task order associated with a task code, a task name, and the amount has to be greater than a penny, 2 cents. And it'll show up. But if it's a penny or less, it's not going to show up in here. So just make sure those things are set up correctly. And then you'll have to wait about 24 hours for it to update on this side. Click on the add button and it should show up. Once you've got it added to your system, and you can see down here some of the information that is pulled from P2, the task status, the milestone events, and the cost time growth. And all of those tabs will show you the details here in just a wee bit. But if you have any issues with adding the P2 projects to RMS, just send in a help support ticket or give us a call and we'll assist you with that one. All right, here are the details for each of those tabs. As you can see, zoom in on this one. Here's the status. It's going to show you the status, delay codes, percent of progress, all that fun, wonderful stuff. The milestones. These are going to be the milestones as they show up in P2. And then the cost time growth, this is going to be the information that comes from P2 from there as well. All right, next module is the correspondence. This is some information from you. The only thing that I'm going to say about this particular slide is the designation of the name. All correspondence, if it comes from the contractor home office, it's going to start with an H. Can't change that. If it comes from their site office, it's going to start with an S. If it comes from the government, it's going to start with a C. So anytime you see the letters, you can tell exactly which one they come from based off of the letter designation at the beginning. All right. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this slide first. Here we go. Now, when you're looking at the correspondence, what you'll see up at the top is there's a couple of different sections where it'll show you all of the different drafts, all of the different sents, all of the different receives, and of course, all of the different memos. Now, these numbers tell you how many are in each of these, and because they're blue, they're tiles, you just click on them to view, filter in this case, the view down here at the bottom. If you want to see all of the documents that were sent, you click on this blue box here with the number 14. There are 14 documents that have been sent, and it will update this data grid down here at the bottom to allow you to see that. It will also update this title right here. It will tell you, instead of correspondence draft, it'll tell you correspondence sent, and because we said all, it'll say all. But if I change it to answer to require, it will be sent and then answer required. So just keep that in mind. This tells you what your view is. And when you want to go back to something, just make sure you go back to whatever sort view you're looking for. Oh yeah, I talked about that one. Okay. So you have the option for add, editing, and deleting correspondence. Again, use the delete key with caution. But the add, what you will normally get is the first 3 and then the last one. These 3 right here only show up if you've got that checkbox checked for allowing government to enter contractor data. Again, I don't advise that you use that. Definitely check with your district's policy before going through that particular one. So I'm going to ignore these ones. You've got the ability to send a letter to the contractor, request for proposal to the contractor, letter to other agency, or government in-house memo, depending on what it is that you want to go through and use. Oh, and here's that exact thing that I was talking about. If you go for this one, you click on this blue box, see it changed, correspondence, receipt, answer required. All right, adding a letter. So when you choose to add the letter to the contractor, what you will see is this screen right here. This is the first screen, and this is the only screen where you will be able to actually see and update the number that goes associated with that. Once you get past this number, if you decide this is 13 and you click OK, it's done, it's 13, it's not going to change. You're not going to be able to change it at that point in time. So make sure whatever you enter in this box is good, and then click OK to go on to the next screen, which is the correspondence edit view. Now, let's see here if I can zoom into this one so we can talk about it. Okay. All right. There's a slight difference with this one because the resolved requires answer and the unresolved are now stacked on top of each other. So they're no longer side by side. So just keep that in mind. This view has slightly updated a little bit. So you can add the date for the letter, you can set the status of the letter, you can put the summary of the letter. Of course, you're going to have to hit the add button first and then add the letter itself right in this document package. And then you can also link it to another letter. Now, if you have, if you put this letter out and you have got a response from the contractor, those will go in here by clicking on the select letters answered by C. If this letter is used to answer a correspondence from somebody else, then you can either use create a new letter to answer this or select an existing letter, and then that will show up down here in this box as well. Now, one of the other things that we didn't talk about earlier is this little book icon. Now, this book icon is quite useful if you have a lot of information that you want to put in this box and it doesn't quite fit, or it doesn't look like it quite fits. You can click on this guy to blow up the view and make it a wider screen so you can type more in if you would like to. All right, adding the attachments is just like with the document package. You're going to choose, if you don't have anything in here, first you choose add, then you double click on this one. Well, if you don't have anything here, you're going to click add. It's going to automatically open up the document edit view. If it's already in there, you just double click on it, open it up. And of course, you're going to go into checkout, where you will add the documents as described earlier. Drag and drop or add. And again, here's the drag and drop feature. And then this is going through the signing process. So it's going to say sign, sign, next, and finish. Now, what it's not showing you is there is a screen. After this screen, it will give you the option of showing where to sign that document. Now, once it gives you that screen, you're going to click on it. There's a little double ellipses that'll show up. You can click on that one. That's how you change where it's actually signing. But always pay attention to what it says when you go through that second screen. So you click on this next button before you hit the finish. It says, I'm going to sign in the lower left-hand corner of the first page. If that's not where you want it, you want to make sure you change it. And then, of course, this particular document package is a little bit different than the other document package we saw because this document package was government originated, not contractor originated. Now, anytime you get a document package that is originating from the government, you won't have accept package. You will have complete package. That's the only difference. So if you come into a document package and you see complete package, that tells you, oh, hey, we started that document package. And that's okay. Now, if it's in the government document package, with the shared document package, you can actually start a shared document package. And what will happen is the first button that you're actually going to see is submit to government for review. You'll see accept in PCF. So that's two things to keep in mind. Okay, finalizing the correspondence. All right, let's go ahead and zoom up over here first. So after you've got everything taken care of and you're ready to go and you're ready to send it, you're going to click on this drop down to show this list of possible options. And you'll set whatever status it has to be in that it goes through. If it's the draft letter is complete, but you're not ready to send it yet, then you can put in draft letter complete and notify whoever needs to review it and say, hey, is this letter good to go? Can I send it? And then when the person comes back and says, yep, they'll put it in letter approved. And then whoever is supposed to send it will change it to letter sent. Now, when they do letter send, see, choosing the letter sent. Coming down here, it says, are you sure? Once it's done, you can't complete it. You say yes. And then you pop it over here. And the document now becomes uneditable. You can no longer update any of this information because you've already sent it. So make sure that you send it when you're ready, and then click the back button. Now, one thing I'm going to note down here, this document package is already accepted because it was completed. So you want to make sure that it was either document package or the complete document package buttons were clicked prior to sending this draft letter out, because if you don't and you want the contractor to see it, they may or may not be able to. So keep that in mind. Plus, again, that sends it to PCF. All right. Once that has been taken care of, I'll get my mouse in the right place so I can zoom here. Here we go. Once that has been taken care of, what you've got now is the increment number for sent will change depending on whether or not you said an answer was required or if an issue was unresolved. So the numbers will increment. And then you can click on whatever it was and it will show up down in the bottom. Hey, it's been sent and an answer is required. All right. Receiving a letter from the contractor. It's basically the same thing. The only difference is in this particular case, you're going to review all of their stuff and go through the same process. And again, with the document package. And then, that's what I'm actually going to talk about. So let me actually zoom in over on this corner right here. There we go. Now, this is, again, where that generate letter shows up. This, remember, I talked about this in the contract file. So basically, this allows you to do those pre-populated templates, memos kind of thing from Word documents. So it's going to prompt you for some little bit of information, and it's going to pre-populate a whole bunch of stuff. And you've got that option inside of using this generate button. So it's always kind of nice. Now, when you click on that generate button, as you can see here, it will bring up this little pop-up for figuring out, okay, what kind of template do I want to go through? And you'll expand it using these buttons right here. And then once you find your template, you're going to click OK, and you'll be able to go on to finishing that up in that particular document package. RFIs. All right, RFIs are a special little type of correspondence. This information here is for you. Again, oh, look, there's the 250 megabyte limit. You can read this at your leisure whenever you feel like it. I'm going to just skip ahead and go through where we're talking about the view itself. Now, zoom in over here. All right, so by default, when you open up the RFI, what you're going to see first is this Contract RFI tab. Now, this is the contractor's information. You'll be able to see this once the contractor has finished all of their information. And what you will want to pay attention to is the status of the document package down at the bottom, because they're more than likely going to send something. If it says in review, then good. The contractor has sent it to the government and you're good to go. If not, if it says not complete, then the contractor hasn't clicked on that button to send to government for review. In most document packages, that's okay. You can help them out by doing that for them, but that's not all of them. So you'll want to sit there. If this isn't right, I would return it to correction and be like, hey, you didn't complete the document package. Please go in and click that little button so I can review everything and take a look at what's going on. You'll still be able to view it in the RFIs, but there are some areas where you won't be able to accept it in PCF unless the contractor first pushes that button. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this status. If it's in review, or if it's not complete and you go in there and you don't see where it says submit to government, you don't see accept, you're going to have to tell the contractor to go back in and fix that. All right, now, government response tab. This is where all of your stuff is going to happen. So what you're going to do is you're going to add all of the information that you need for the response to the government. And then once you are done, you're going to click this answer complete. Once the answer complete checkbox is done, then there's going to be another checkbox that shows up down here underneath it that says core approved. The contractor is not going to see your response until that core approved has been checked. Now that's for legal purposes and protection, because if you're in the process of setting stuff up and it's not quite ready, you don't want them to see what's going on unless you're actually ready for them to see it. So that's something to keep in mind. If you want them to see it, you have to check that core approved. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to see any information that you put on this tab until after that checkbox is checked. All right. Here's some extra tips about going through and doing some of this stuff. And see, here's my here's that core ACO approved checkbox that I was talking about. And of course, it talks about the document packages. All right, the next module of interest is the contract user entry. This is used for the word macros. So for your contract, you have the ability of pre-entering some of the information for generating the letters as well. So you can put in, if you know for a fact that this is going to be something specific, you can type that in. And this allows you to edit that as well. There's also a report in the summary reports at the root of the district. So when you log into the district, those tabs that went across the top that I talked about said we weren't going to talk about that. Well, I'm going to talk about that briefly because that is where you find the summary report. All of the macros are available inside of RMS for you to use. And that's found in the summary reports library reports. So if you open up the summary reports and then you go to the library report sort, library, that's this one right here. You click on this guy, blue box, and it will show this. And then you'll be able to do this one. But honestly, if you just type in RMS, it will be better because it'll reduce this quite a bit. All right. Prime contractor. So this is where I had gotten ahead of myself. This is what both the government and the contractor can see. And this part is only visible by the government. Now that I'm more awake. All right, so anything, if you want a contractor to be able to see your contract, the very first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to set up the prime contractor by using this lookup list. If the prime contractor doesn't show up in this lookup list, that means they need to be added to the district first. I would contact your district administrator on processes for that because you have to have the right permissions to be able to do that. Now, another change that is coming to RMS, the DUNS number is going to go away. Bye-bye, because it's going to be replaced with UEI. That is coming in subsequent releases, so be on the lookout for that. We will put out a YouTube tutorial video once it does get released, so that way you guys will have an idea of what it's going to look like, how it's going to work, that kind of stuff. So be on the lookout for our YouTube channel. If we can, let's see if we can post a link in the chat so that way y'all will know where to go to look for it. And with the YouTube channel, just a quick side note, we actually post 4 videos every single month. So every single month, there are 4 new tutorial videos that are posted out there. They are both for the government and the contractor. Sometimes it's the contractor point of view. Sometimes it's the government point of view. Sometimes it's both. But we're always putting out new tutorial videos, and we of course always appreciate your feedback. If there's a tutorial video that you want a quick 5-minute snippet of, let us know. We'll be more than happy to go ahead and create that for you. Okay, back to here. So once you've entered all of this top information, you also have to enter the payee office. Now, the payee office is required to do progress payments. So if you don't have a payee office set up, you're not going to be able to do anything. But here's the thing. The payee office comes from CEFMS. Oh, if you click on it and there's nothing that shows up in the list, that means there's nothing in CEFMS for this contract for this particular prime contractor. So you will need to make sure that everything is set up correctly in CEFMS. If you need assistance with that, you will need to contact CEFMS support, as we are not authorized to provide assistance with CEFMS. I do apologize about that, but I don't know CEFMS. I'm sorry. The next thing that you're going to want to be able to do is this contractor staff tab, which we'll talk about in just a minute, because you have to do the first person. Government has to enter the first person. Government has to enter the top. But then this bottom stuff, all of this lovely little information, let the contractor do that. That's on the contractor. They can fill out all of this information themselves. Let's see here. Yep. And so let's zoom in on this little section right here, because we have another little very important button. This prevents contractor mode access. This is actually really important because of the fact that there are times where you do not want the contractor to be in the contract, but you don't really want to take them off of the contract by removing them from the prime contractor. So all you have to do is click on this lovely little button right here. And then when they go to try and log in, it will tell them, sorry, you're not allowed. You cannot access this contract at this time. And they'll have to contact you to figure out why. Or you can let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm not letting you in the contract until XYZ is done, or some such, whatever it happens to be. All right. The NIACS code is something that you enter. It comes from the North American Industry Classification Systems, and we have provided the website down here, so you can go ahead and look up that. And again, the DUNS number is going to be replaced with the UEI. All right. Here is the prime contractor staff tab that I was talking about. So, the first time after you've added the prime contractor to the contract, the very first step that you have to do is you have to add the very first administrator, so that way they can go in and add all of the subsequent users in this case. By doing that, you just click on this add button right here. It's going to first bring up this screen right here, and you're going to enter in their email address. Now, it's very important that you make sure that you enter the email address that the user is going to use to create their RMS account. Now, you can go ahead and create this email or enter in this email before the user actually creates their account in RMS. That's okay. But you adding them to the contractor staff does not create their user in RMS. They must first create their user in RMS before they can access all of this stuff. But you can set this stuff up ahead of time. As long as you know what email they're going to be using, you can go ahead and type that in. Now, keep in mind, any deviation from the email will not link it to their login account. So make sure that the spelling is correct before you click OK. Because once you click OK, the email can no longer be changed. Once you click OK, you're going to get the contractor staff edit view, and you're going to be able to put in their first name and their last name, and you have to check this box, has administrator rights. That's only for the first user. Everybody after that can be set up based off of who this user is. They can go through and they can add the users accordingly. Subcontractors. All right. So here's a little bit of information about what we're going to be talking about with subcontractors. I'm going to skip that and go on to the next page. So this is where you're going to have a list of all the subcontractors that are in this particular contract. Zoom in right here. There we go. All right. This is going to show you a list and the responsibility code. Now, one thing to note about this one, this responsibility code cannot be changed. Now, here's one of the drawbacks of not paying attention to the scheduling software if they start using an SDF file after they've already manually entered stuff into RMS. They set up the responsibility code in RMS, and then they go to their scheduling software and they use a different responsibility code in their scheduling software. Well, guess what? They import the SDF file, and now you got the original one that they put in and the new one that they put in, and one of them may or may not be the correct one. So it's very, very important that you let the contractor know ahead of time if they're using the SDF file. Everything must match what is in RMS at the time before they do the import. So the scheduling software, all of the activity IDs, all of the responsibility codes, all of the three-phase inspection numbers, the features of request, all of that stuff must match exactly what is in RMS. And the cleanse too. If you want to link the cleanse to the correct activity, if your cleanse is cleanse 0001 and they put 1, that's not the same. It's not going to come in the same. So when they import it, it's not going to go to cleanse 1. They're going to have to manually go through and do that. So they got to go back to their scheduling software and make sure everything in their scheduling software matches exactly what's in RMS. Now, I say this is a drawback, but honestly, this is still better than going through and manually doing everything as like, oh, well, I got to do this. Oh, well, I got to do this. Oh, I'll do it later. Nah, just do it all in one shot, pre-populate everything, and then when you have to do any updates, you can go ahead and do that, and it will update everything at one time instead of you going back behind and doing this one, that one. Again, the SF file will save you a lot, but the contractor has to be very careful how it's entered into their scheduling software. Okay. And of course, you have the option of add, edit, and delete. Now, delete, there's a caveat to the delete. If the subcontractor is associated with insurance, payrolls, activities, or anything else in RMS, you can't delete it. It can't be done. Labor hours, especially. That's the one that's going to kill them the most, is the labor hours, because those are in the QC daily reports. And you have to go into every single reference in the QC daily reports, and that's going to take a lot of time. So this is why it's very important to spend a little extra time on that SF file in the scheduling software before you import it, so you save yourself extra work. But as long as everything is imported correctly, you will save yourself tons and tons of time. All right. When you want to edit the subcontractor that's in there, you just double click on the name of that subcontractor and it will bring up the subcontractor edit view. And this is what you'll see. And see the responsibility code. You can't change that. Once it's in there, it's in there. But you can update all of this information. But usually this information is entered by the contractor. So know that you have the ability to go in here and enter this stuff, but you really should let the contractor do that because it's for them. And whether or not you have subcontractors on your contract is going to be dependent upon your office district policy and the contract itself. Now, down here at the bottom is where you're going to find out if you need to track insurance for this particular person and if you need to track payroll. This is also on the prime contractor screen. And this information is for you as well as for the contractor. So it's very important that once the contract has started, or once the subcontractor has started work on the contract, this day of week doesn't change. Because if you change this day of week, you could end up getting two possible payrolls showing up instead of one, because originally you had it set up for Saturday, and in the middle of the thing, you decided, oh, wait, no, it's not supposed to be Saturday. It's supposed to be Sunday. Let me go in there and change that. Well, great. Now you have all of the dates from Saturday from before, and now for the very next one, you will have a Saturday and a Sunday. And if the contractor isn't paying attention, when they send the payroll, they might actually send it on the Saturday instead of the Sunday. So just make sure that you let them know that with this payrolls ending day of week, set it at the beginning and don't change it. It'll save you quite a bit of stuff. Okay. Contractors Insurance. Here's some information for you to read whenever you get a chance. And going into the module itself, let's zoom in a little bit here. Okay. Of course, all the way up top, we have some of the sort tiles available and how many are in each of them. Now, I think I said this, but I'm going to reiterate. All of the sort tiles will tell you how many are in each of those filtering options. So if you see a 0, there's no reason clicking on it because nothing's going to show up. But what you will see is it will show you the contractor name, the responsibility code, their trade if it's been set, as well as the dates for the different insurances that happen to be on this particular page. If it's been set as well. Now, if they don't have insurance tracking, they're not going to show up in this list. The only time they'll show up in this list is if the insurance tracking was checked on that previous slide. That was 2 slides ago, previous one. So that's this guy right down here, insurance required. If that checkbox is not checked, they're not going to show up. All right. Now, when you double click on any of the subcontractors in the insurance required section, this is what's going to show up. This is where you can enter in the dates for each of those insurance items. And of course, there's a document package for those insurance items to show up. Now, the contractor can enter all this information in, and it's probably the contractor's responsibility to do that too. But so you're aware this screen is here. You can also what the SF1430 looks like when you click on the add or edit. And then, of course, here's the document package. And let me zoom in on that guy right there. Ding. Aha. So anytime you get a document package where you get this button right here, submit for review, that tells you that the contractor didn't push that button. Usually it is the contractor's job, push this button to make sure it gets sent. Once you push this button, then you'll have your two little buttons for accepting or rejecting over here. So keep that in mind. If you see this button, that means they didn't do it. You can click it, but you really want to get them in the habit of always clicking this button, submit for review. So you probably want to send it back like, hey, you got to click that button. All right. Payrolls. So, all right, so if you're going to be tracking payrolls into RMS, what you can see is there's this option in the contract setup under the administration funding, and then you can set when those payrolls will stop by the milestones. Now, a little note about payrolls. Payrolls are automatically generated. It's not something that the contractor generates. It's not something that the government generates. It's automatically generated based off of the subcontractor edit view, as well as first day on site and the prime contractor edit view if it's set up to track payrolls. So if the subcontractor or the prime contractor has that checkbox for payrolls required, then using the start date for first day on site, payrolls will start generating when an administrator on the contractor side logs in and opens up the contractor payroll module. Prior to them logging in and going into the contractor payroll module, nothing's going to populate in there because the action of an administrator going in there will generate those dates. Now, they'll all show up as draft, and it will be up to them to choose which ones to send you accordingly. Now, you can also stop it based off of these three milestones. You can choose which milestone you want the payrolls to stop generating at. So if you know that once the contractor gets the final payment, no more payrolls need to be chosen or sent, then you can go ahead and click on this button, and no more after the actual date for the final payment milestone will be entered into RMS at that point in time. All right. Inside the actual payrolls, of course, we have our lovely little filter button, and you can actually go through and find a specific date if you want to and check it, or check a couple of dates, depending on how you want. Now, this is actually kind of important because if you have a couple of different subcontractors and they all have a payroll ending day week of Saturday, and you want to see everybody that did payroll for, let's say, April 23rd, then you can click on this filter and you can specifically look for April 23rd. It's going to reduce this list to showing only the ones that were April 23rd. Let's see if I can hit my zoom button to see some of this stuff a little more clearly. And of course, we've got the sort tiles up at the top. These are pretty much everywhere. And this is one of our test contracts. So they've got 174 outstanding payrolls, because we don't actually use most of those ones. But you will see the responsibility code, the contractor's name, the payroll dates, how many employees they put on that, how many hours they put on that, and what the actual status is. If it's in draft, that means the contractor is still either working on it, or it's not something that needs to be sent because it wasn't a payroll day. Okay. And of course, you got this edit view right here. Let's see, there we go. Edit. But again, I'm not a big fan of using the edit. I just double click on it to open it up. And when you double click on it to open up, you will see the payroll edit view. Yeah. On this one. Yeah. So with the payroll edit view, all of this information is going to be grayed out because it's already been sent to the government for review. You have the option of going through and taking a look on this, adding your comments, reviewing anything that's been put in the document package. If you agree with it, you click on this payroll accepted, it's done, it's good to go. You're still going to need to accept the document package if they've added it, but this will accept the payroll. Then if there is a document package, I would suggest going into the document package first, review everything, accept it, click the back button, and then choose payroll accepted. Now, if for whatever reason it's not good enough, it needs to be returned to the contractor, you can click on this payroll rejected. If you need the contractor to change what's in the document package, you also need to go into the document package and click on the button for return to contractor for corrections to allow them to either delete or add more documents to that. But if you don't want to delete the old ones, you just want new ones, You can leave it as it is and just force them to add a new document package with the new documents. So that way you can see the history. Okay, the first time they sent it, they gave me this. That wasn't right. The second time they sent it, they gave me this. That is correct. But that's based off of your district's policy and personal preference. So to see how how you guys want to handle that one. Labor interviews. All right. For the labor interviews, if you are tracking labor interviews, you can go into the labor interviews module to track all of that information. You, of course, have your add, edit, and delete buttons, and you will see when the date was, who the employer subcontractor was, what classification was set for it, and what the result of the interview happened to be. By double clicking on any of these, you're going to see the labor interview edit view. Dun, dun. Wait, let me back up. One caveat with the labor interviews as well as the contractor payrolls. You will not be able to access these if you do not have your PII taken care of. Now, if you have a CAC, you're good to go. You already do that yearly anyways with your CAC, so you don't have to worry about this. But if you are a non-CAC login user, you need to submit to your PII administrator the documents showing that you have had your PII training. Once that has been done, then you will be able to see the labor interviews and the contractor payrolls. Otherwise, can't see it. So make sure you get that stuff taken care of. If you're a CAC user, then you don't have to worry about that. You can see it because you do it every year. All right, back to the edit view. Okay. After double clicking on it to open it up and edit, of course, you can set the date, you can set who it was, the name of the actual person you were talking to, the labor interview lookup field, you've got the wage rate that you determine, if there's sick leave confirmed, any comments that you want to add, any documents that you want to add, and of course, is the labor interview information in agreement with the payroll data? You can choose either yes, unresolved, or no. Those are your options to choose from. So if it's good, it's yes. If not, it's no. If you're not 100% sure because you're still looking, it's unresolved. Whether or not you use this section is dependent upon your district's policy, and how you use it also is dependent upon your district's policy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions right now. Give you guys a couple of minutes if you have any questions. If not, I'm going to take a quick little break, and then we'll get started on the next section. Now, I'm going to silence myself and wait just a moment. All right, I don't hear any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and let everybody take a 5-minute break really fast, and then we'll get back to it. We'll be right back in about 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we still have about 2 more sections to go through. Three more sections to go through. So you are not going to be able to continue after the 2-hour mark. I do apologize ahead of time, but don't worry, we're recording these ones and we will go ahead and post this on our YouTube channel in about a week. So that way you can go through and review anything that you missed. Now, if you have any questions that you would like to see answered at the end, I will try and do a couple of different live demos if they are requested. So if you have something that you want to see, post it in the chat before you run away. We'll go ahead and see if we can't get that taken care of. But let's go ahead and move on to submittals. Now, I'm only going to go over this really briefly because we have a training Thursday on this topic, and we'll go into some serious detail on that one. So I'm just going to kindly briefly talk about this one. But if you want any details or if you have any questions about the submittals, I suggest either attending, or if the timing doesn't work out for you because you guys might be asleep, then wait until we post it onto the YouTube channel and take a look and see what all of the changes and updates happen to be. Okay. Button. Apparently my button doesn't want to work today. There we go. All right. Submittals. When you click on the Submittal tab, what you will see are these particular modules. You actually have to set up the left two modules first before you can do anything in the transmittal log, but all of the magic happens in the transmittal log. So that's what we're going to focus on for the most part, but we are going to briefly talk about the specification and the submittal register. Now, the submittal register, you have the option of using some predefined master list information to pull from. You've got the 1995, the 2004, and the 2014. These can be found in the district, the cistern library inside of the district's main site. And this will just show you the list of everything. And when you click on the add button from the specification section to add it, it will allow you to populate either manually or using these master lists. Now, you also have the ability to import, but we'll talk about that later. However, I would advise importing because importing will save you a lot of time and effort. And also, I think it's the contractor's responsibility. Okay, here's the filtering option. This is what the submittal register looks like when you come in. You've got your sort tiles for viewing the stuff in various different ways. You've got the option of choosing a different register, and you can view everything through there. And of course, you've got all of these tiles right here. Now, if I remember correctly, some of the headers on here have updated. So we'll go ahead and get that updated in our next slide deck. Just know that the basics are going to be the same, and actually for Thursday's training, all of the slides have those are all correct, so you won't have to worry about that stuff. So if you want more details, watch Thursday's training. It will give you some of that information. Of course, it's showing you how to filter as well. But basically, the most interesting part is going to be this outstanding stuff. This will tell you at a quick glance what's going on when you single click on them down at the bottom, which is not on this page. Down at the bottom of under this part of the screen, there's a history, which will tell you when it was submitted, what the QA code was, just to give you a brief idea of what it is. So you single click on it to show the details down at the bottom, or you can double click on it to edit it, and that takes you to the edit view screen right here. Now, again, most of this stuff should already be updated. And again, I would actually recommend using the import because it'll save you a lot of work and a lot of time. But if you need to manually do anything, you can actually come in here. And these are the fields that will allow you to do some changes. Now, the only thing that you're going to notice is the start date. You may or may not be able to edit that. That depends on your contract setup submittals schedule tab setting. Remember that checkbox I said that said compute need dates based on activity schedule? That controls this date. This date will not be changeable, selectable, or editable if that checkbox is checked. And that's actually better for you because guess what? That means you don't have to go in and verify that those dates are correct. And you don't have to go in there and take a look and see, is that date right? Is that date right? No, that date isn't right. Let me fix it. Nah, you won't have to do that. Just confirm with the schedule that those dates are right. And you know that the date for this item is going to be correct. You won't have to check it again. So again, take your time with the import. All right. When you log in when you go into the transmittal log, like I said, this is where all the magic happens. The very first view that you're going to end up seeing is going to be the transmittal review. But the first thing that you're actually going to have to do is go over to pending government receipt. When you go to pending government receipt, you need to enter a date in the date received box. So that way the transmittal moves from pending government receipt into transmittals in review, where you can actually open it up and take a look at it. Okay, so in the document package of a transmittal view, so there's two different places that you can get documents, and we'll go into more detail in the next training for this one. But just note that you'll need to check both the attachments button if it shows something other than 0, and the bottom document package for any document packages or for any documents that have been added to this particular transmittal by the contractor. And again, you're going to want to review every single one of the documents, sign them if required. And once you're finished with that, you're going to click on the accept package to get everything ready to send to, let me rephrase that. You don't want to accept this package before you complete the transmittal because that process is not right. So I'll make sure these slides are updated because the document package inside of the transmittals is special, very special. You don't want to sign the 4025 in this document package, and you don't want to complete the document package for this one because we all do that for you automatically when you click on the button that says apply QA codes and sign the 4025 on the main view of that transmittal. And again, we'll give you all of the details with all of those pictures in more depth on Thursday, so you'll be able to go ahead and take a look at that. But just know that with the transmittals, the document package is treated differently. This is the one and only time you're not going to click that, except, well, you might have one other time. But this is a very big time where you don't want to accept this package. And please do not sign the QA, the 4025 in here, because it's not going to apply your QA codes to the 4025 if you try to sign it in the document package. It's very important that you go back to the main edit view of that actual transmittal and click on that apply QA codes and sign 4025. Now, the other thing to note is if the contractor has manually signed the 4025, unfortunately, you're also going to have to manually sign it. So you'll have to download it. You'll have to open it up in your Adobe Reader, your Adobe Acrobat. You're going to need to put the QA codes on using Adobe Acrobat and sign it either in Adobe Acrobat, or you got to print it out, physically sign it, scan it back in. And then once that's done, the button that says manually attach sign the 4025, that option will give you the option to search your computer for the signed document, upload into the document package, and show up as attested signature attached. That's how that goes through. Again, for more details on that one, please see our training on Thursday. There's going to be a lot of information in there. And if you cannot make that, that's okay. A week from Thursday, it will be posted on to our YouTube channel. All right. Any questions regarding submittals before we move on to the QA, QC? Nope. All right, moving on. All right, QC tab. So this is a summary of all of the things that we're going to be talking about for this particular tab. Note these. I don't think this is everything that's in there, but these are the things that we're going to kind of hit on. And we're only going to hit on them. We're not really going to go into depth of much of these because that's a lot. All right, you're going to go to the QA/QC tab. That is this tab showing up right here. And when you do so, these are all of the modules that you will see in the bottom. And the first thing that we're going to take a look at is the QA daily reports. And we have a list of what the QA daily report shows. And we're going to go into the module itself. So when you actually click on the module, my mouse in the right place, this is what you're going to see when you go into the QA daily reports. Now, I think there is some new tabs, tiles. Goodness, I can talk. New columns that are showing up in here, and we will update that. So when you open up your RMS, if you have an extra tile, extra column in here, that's because that's a new feature that we've recently added, and we haven't yet had the time to get these slides taken care of and reflect that information. But in here, what you can see is the QC status, that the QC report that's associated with it, as well as what the QC weather was set up and when the date for that actually was. Wait a minute, this is just the QC reports. I must have skipped it. All right, so basically it's going to be the same things. It will show you the same information, but it'll also show you the QA status report as well. Okay. But when you open up a QA daily report to edit it, that means you just find the one with the right date, you double click on it. This is what you're going to end up seeing. And you will see on the left side that there are a bunch of modules, submodules in this case, off to the side that you can enter information. The most important one, of course, is weather. You have to enter in the weather before you can complete it. So that has to be done. You can also enter all of this other information, or in the case of deficiencies, more than likely you're checking the deficiencies. And you're also checking the verify QC requirements. So if you ever get an action item that says, hey, you got a QC requirement that needs verification, you come into your QC, any QA daily report that has not been completed, you can come into the verify QC requirements and go through the process of doing that. We're not really going to get into that detail. But you can also add the labor interview details from inside of the QA daily reports as well. Remember, we did that in the administration tab in labor interviews. You can also do it here. Once you've entered all of the information, or in the meantime, while you're entering the information, there's this lovely little button up here that gives you the preview of the report, and it will show you basically what the report looks like right here. It'll be in a pop-up screen, of course. Behind this screen, normally you'll just have what's already entered into the contract, but you can't edit the information that shows up in this view. You can only edit it by going into these submodules over here. Now, at any point in time, you can sit there and you can click on this button to view the report. Just know that once the report is complete, if you click on this button, it's not going to show you any of the signs, signatures, or any of that kind of stuff, because this is the snapshot picture of what it looks like at that time. If you want to see the ones with the signatures, then you'll have to go into the document packages to take a look at those ones. And of course, when you're done, you've got not complete or not required checkbox if you don't actually need to do anything with it, and then report completed checkbox, which will show up here. Now, your contractor might be putting in QC daily reports for every single day of the week. You don't necessarily have to do the same days, exactly the same days. Maybe you only do yours on Friday. I don't know. It's going to be your district's policy to determine when, where, and how many of those daily reports you do. So check with your district policy to find out if you have to do it every single day or if you can get away with just doing it once a week or something like that. All right, so this goes into a little bit more depth for each of the different submodules. You can go ahead and look at that at your leisure. And here's some more of the submodules. And here's a preview of the reports that I showed you kind of earlier. This is just a bigger view of it so you can take a look at it. And the document packages for the QA report. Now, it's the same as all other document packages. The only difference is yes, you can sign the documents this direction, but if it's the QA report itself, we actually offer you the ability to multi-sign those ones, so you don't necessarily have to do it in the document package. And when you go through the process of signing multiple QA reports at the same time, then what you also have the option of doing is you don't have to worry about completing this document package, because once the second signer has signed that QA report, it's complete and off to PCF, so you don't have to worry about that one. But if you are not using the multi-sign, then yeah, you will need to go through the process of using the sign selected documents and then accepting the package to get it to send to PCF. Once you are finished with everything good to go, you're going to, of course, go to the, well, you're going to check this box first. You're going to check the report complete first. That's going to generate the QA report inside of the document package. If you are singly signing instead of multi-signing, then you need to open up the document package and complete the package after signing the document. Otherwise, if you're going to be using the multi-sign feature, then after you check that report complete, you can just back out, and then whoever is responsible for signing everything, the two individuals, they'll go in. First person has to sign first. The order for this particular matters. So the first signer has to sign first, and then so the preparer signs first and the approver signs second. It has to be done that way. RMS forces it in this particular case. Okay, QC daily reports. So if you need to review the contractor's QC daily reports, you're going to go over to the QC daily reports module, and this will show you the list of all of the QC daily reports, their statuses, as well as the report numbers and the dates. I wouldn't worry too much about the report numbers themselves. It's more important the dates. The dates are the most important part in this particular case. And of course, it'll show you the brief view of the weather. And of course, you have add, edit, and delete. Now, one thing to note, this actually is different. This is the contractor view, not the government view, because these tiles are gold, not blue. Remember, blue is for government mode and gold is for contractor mode. And of course, we've got our sort tiles, our add, edit, and delete. Now, the contractor is the only one that can come in here and do this information, and should be the only one that does that. Of course, if you've got that checkbox checked, you can. But again, it should be the contractor's responsibility to enter all of this information that's showing up in this area. QC summary. So this actually gives you a really quick, brief overview of various different things. You can look at the QA summary and the QC summary, depending on what it is you're looking for. You can look at the weather, you can look at the efficiencies issued by the QA or by the QC. You can do the QA test, the QA narratives. Now, for the QC summary, it's not going to be QA narratives, it's going to be probably QC narratives. You got the final follow-ups, the QC requirements, the QA attachments, and of course, all of these sort files have numbers associated with them, letting you know how many options, how many issues are in there. And then when you click on them, of course, what changes is the title right here, and it will show you a list of all of the documents that are, or all of the items that are associated with that particular. So if I'm clicking on the accident reports reported by QA, if I click on the accidents, it'll show up all of the accidents down here with some information going across the top regarding that. Weather delays. All right, the weather delays are populated by month, and they won't show up until the first day of the very next month. So it automatically populates in this particular case on the first day of the month. So for the month of April this year, it's not going to populate until May 1st. So when May 1st comes along, then what you will see is a May 1st will pop up. May of 2022 will pop up right here. And at that point, you're going to double click on it to open up the next view, which is the weather delays calendar edit view. So this is going to give you a basic summary of all of the weather based off of the QA and the QC report. If for whatever reason the QA report and the QC report don't match with weather, there will be a little red notification right down here that says, hey, this doesn't match, you need to verify that. And you can click on it and then they'll give you the option to either agree with the contractor or disagree with the contractor to resolve the weather issue. And it's just meaning that it could be somebody, either the contractor or whoever was entering the weather, forgot what day the actual weather happened on and didn't enter it in the right place. You'll just need to talk to the people to find out when the bad weather actually occurred, if there is bad weather then. And then down at the bottom, it will give you some brief little bits of information regarding that. And when you are done with the review, you click on this checkbox right here for review complete. All right, definable features of work. Most of this stuff is going to be set up by the contractor, and honestly, if they're using an SDF file, then it'll all get set up automatically and make their life easier anyways. But if you need to go in there and take a look at it, or if you want to add another one that's not in there, you can do so by going into the features of work module. The module button looks like this, and you can add, edit, delete. It will show you the list of all of the features of work that are associated with that. Let's zoom in so let's see here. And of course, it will talk about the number of days after a preparatory that the initial meeting should be scheduled. It'll show that here for you. And then we have the three-phase inspection. As you see, there's a lot of information on the three-phase inspection. You can go ahead and take a look at that. Now, in order for the three-phase inspection to populate, the features of work must first be populated. So you have to do the features of work before the three-phase inspection can be showing anything, because this information is going to automatically populate based off of the features of work themselves. And then you can double click on any of them, set the preparatory checks, the initial checks, and the follow-up checks. But the brief summary will show you right here how many of each of the different types of checks are associated with that particular feature. Now, we do have 2 new videos that are going to be coming out probably in another week or 2 that specifically talk about how to set up features of work as well as three-phase inspections. So check out our YouTube channel. They should be coming out here pretty quickly. And so if you have a contractor who's having issues with trying to do some of this stuff, you can send that video over to them, help them figure out how to do that. Aha! Activity hazard analysis. Okay, let's zoom in over here. When you open up that activity hazard analysis, you've got 2 tabs. You've got the regular hazard analysis and the legacy hazard analysis. For the most part, you're just going to be looking at this hazard analysis. You can add, edit, or delete, of course. You can search, of course, and you can export the list, and it will tell you who approved it, what the current status is, and what the AHA happens to be. When you double click on any of those, you'll be able to see the AHA edit view, which will give you the description, which you can change, and the feature of work associated with, which you can change by clicking on this lookup field. Now, this lookup field is going to be based off of the features of work module. So if something is missing, that's because it's not in the features of work module. You need to go back to that and update it. And of course, you have your document package for adding any documents associated with this AHA. QC requirements. All right, let's get over here. There we go. All right, so for your QC requirements, of course, you got the sort tiles that run along the top, and you've got your add, edit, and search and export, and then it'll show you the list of everything down here. When you single click on your whatever it is that you happen to be looking at, you're going to scroll down and see a brief bit of history that shows up down here. Now, there is one caveat to this particular module, and this happens in the QC daily reports as well, and that is the QC tests. You might have some contractors who will sit there and they will complete the test, they will mark it as complete, but they don't know how to change it from awaiting test results to passed or failed or whatever it happens to be. And that's because that has to be done in the QC daily report module. When they go into the QC requirements, they need to click on this sort tile up at the top that says QC test. This will change the column header view from what's the default, and it will add an extra column down here, which will allow you to change the status of the test itself, whether it's awaiting results, it's failed, it's passed, or whatever the status may be. So that's very important, that if a contractor doesn't know how to do that, tell them they need to go into an uncompleted QC daily report, go into the QC requirements, click on this sort tile, QC tests, and then it will allow them to edit that information. But you can see it here. You can't change it here, but you can see it here. Equipment checks. So if you're using equipment for RMS, there are going to be times where you are going to need to make sure that equipment is running like it is supposed to. That first has to be added into the equipment check module before the number of hours used, the number of hours idle can be put in the QC daily report. So they have to come into the equipment checks module, click on the add button and add the required information for it. The first thing that you're going to get is the screen right here after clicking the add button and the serial number. That does not get changed after this is put in. So make sure when the contractor does this, they enter the serial number correctly. And of course you can do the description, which you can change later. You click OK and it goes to the equipment check edit view. If you find that something needs to be changed, you just double click on the equipment that needs to be edited. You can bring up this view. But again, remember, this number cannot be changed, but it is not a system. Well, it is system generated up here, but this can be updated based off of other information at this screen, but it cannot be updated once you have clicked this OK button. So keep that in mind. Apparently my coffee hasn't really kicked in yet. So this number actually is the ID. That is system generated, can't be changed. But the serial number can be changed. This is one of those few cases where what you enter here can actually be changed in the edit view. My apologies. But you enter the make of the model, the description, when it was last inspected, when it was last re-inspected, and if it has a last day on site. So once it's been decommissioned, that date goes in here. But prior to decommissioning, there really shouldn't be a date in here at this point in time. And of course, the checkbox for if it is safe. And this is why you need to do that first, because in the QC daily report under labor hours, what you've got is two tabs, and that is the equipment hour report. So for the contractor, what they'll do is they'll come in here, and if they don't see, if they click on this add button and they don't see the equipment that they're trying to add hours to, then it's because they need to go back to this area here and add the equipment here. Once they've added it there, then they'll be able to see it in the add option here in order to add the idle hours and the operating hours for that equipment into their QC daily report itself. Exposure hours. All right, again, exposure hours are populated based on month, and they are generated on a monthly basis on the first day after the month has been completed. So for April 2022, it will generate on May 1st, not before. Once it's generated, you'll be able to come in here and double click on the month that you're specifically looking for, and it brings up this view right here, which is the exposure hour edit view. Now, the contractor has the ability to copy all of this information from their QC daily reports. One thing to note about this one, if the QC daily report is not complete, or if there's a QA daily report and no corresponding QC daily report for a specific day, they're going to have problems copying the information, which means they're going to have to manually enter that information in here. So it's very important that you remind them that, one, they complete all of their QC daily reports prior to trying to do this exposure hour report, and two, that there are no QC daily reports missing. So if you have a QA daily report on the 15th and the contractor does not, when they go to try and add, RMS is going to be like, wait a minute, there's supposed to be a QC daily report on here and there's nothing. I can't copy all of that information. You got to fix that first. So you're going to want to make sure that you talk to your contractor about that. If they're saying that they're having to manually put in all of this information every single month, it's probably because either the QC daily report isn't done or there's no matching QC daily report for the QA daily reports. And of course, after you reviewed it and everything looks good, you have the option of accepting the hours or, gotta get my mouse down here, accepting the hours or returning them for corrections because something doesn't work right. And of course, you can write in your submitter, and then any comments that you have will go in at this point. QA tests. All right. Now, the QA tests are kind of similar to the QC test in the fact that if you want to set what the status is, that's going to have to be done in the QA daily reports. But you can add the tests themselves here using the add button, or you can delete them, or you can edit them by double clicking on them or single click and click over here. So, and of course, always, you'll notice that there's a bunch of text on almost every single slide that's on this slideshow. I'm not going to read those ones because that's just more for your information. So if you want to go back and read those, you have the option of doing so. We provide it for you in case you need it, but for the most part, I'm just going to hit the brief highlights of what we're talking about. Required verifications. So if you have QC verifications that you want to set as required, these are the install property, the QC test, the transfer properties, and the user schools. You can come into the required QC verifications and take a look and see what's going on. It will show you a brief little view of this with some pie charts down at the bottom. And of course, this is like the contract file. You need to click on these little arrows right here in order to expand it. Okay. All right. Planned interviews. So the planned interviews module allows you to schedule based off of the contractors and subcontractors how many interviews you plan on having with that particular company. One thing that you will notice, the contractor code PRIM, P-R-I-M, is for the prime contractor. So make sure you just remember that PRIM is prime. And that you always want to make sure that when you're talking to the contractor about doing their SDF file, anything that they're referencing for the responsibility code for themselves needs to be marked as PRIM, always PRIM. And anything for the government is GOV. All right, we do offer the option of refreshing the daily reports. This happens when you've got the signed daily, well, not the signed, the QA daily reports or the QC daily reports, and you had to make some kind of change to the report itself, and the document package still has the old one, not the new one. Then you can come into this module here and check the box of whichever one you want to refresh the documents that are in those document packages. All right. Any questions before we move on to the progress payments? No? All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue on to the progress payments. Again, you can pop any questions that you want in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to answer those ones. Progress payments. So really quickly, we're going to talk about the pay request worksheet for the contractor and how to use that one, and then, of course, at editing and evaluating the pay request. Now, we do have a couple of various different tutorial videos as well as at least one really long webinar training on progress payments themselves. I would advise you to avail yourselves to take a look at those if you have any questions for more in-depth, because it's going to be just pretty basic. Of course, you can always ask a question. If I know the answer, I'll go ahead and get it to you. If not, we'll get back to you on that one. But yeah, because progress payments are complicated. They're a very complicated beast. So this is a brief overview for you. You can go ahead and read that whenever you have time, but it's the basics of how it's being used. And this is the basics for the contract pay request worksheet, which can be found in the contract reports, searching for worksheet, and you'll see it under the finances. So you expand the finances and you pull up this contractor request worksheet, and it will give you these documents here. So this will give you a list of all of the activities that are associated with it, the features and submittal items associated with each item for the activity that you're looking at. And then you can have a meeting with the contractor to determine how much they can actually ask for each pay period. Now, whether or not you're using this worksheet is based off of your district's policy. You may or may not, but this is provided just for your convenience, so you can use it if you would like to. When you are ready to actually process the finance payments, you're going to go to the Finances tab, and then you're going to open up the progress payments itself. Now, here are some prerequisites. These are very important. You need to first make sure that there is an actual NTP date. All of the activities are balanced. If there's an SDEF import, it needs to be the most current and up to date. And then the KTR, of course, the contractor has to finish their invoice and send it off to the government. So once all of this stuff is done, then you can go ahead and progress the progress payments. One thing to note about the progress payments, if the contractor sends you a pay invoice and you finish up a modification before you complete their progress payment, it's going to cause you some difficulty, because it'll probably unbalance a whole bunch of the pay activities if you're changing how much money is going when, where, how. So if you're in the middle of processing a progress payment and you're also in the middle of applying a mod, wait until the progress payment is completed, then finish processing the mod. Progress payment. All right, so here's a little bit of information about the progress payments. Here's an error message. Let's see here. Yeah, finances are not properly balanced. For the most part, if the finances are not balanced when they try to do that, it's probably because they didn't balance their activities with the cleanse amounts. So if there's any unbalanced activities, the contractor just needs to go into the activities and move the money to the correct activity, either by reducing or adding money to activities, depending on what was changed and why. This is why we always suggest doing a SDEF import prior to any kind of submission of a progress payment, because this will make sure that everything that is in RMS is current and up to date prior to setting that, which includes balancing those pay activities. Oh, one thing to note, when you select it, there's a brief little description of a summary of where it's at with if something is done. There'll be a checkbox here, and whether or not it's completed or required will show up over here, and any dates will show here. All right. When you are ready to actually edit it, you're going to double click on it to open it up, and this is the first screen that you're going to see. You have the ability to change these guys and to set the payee office if it was not set in the prime contractor module itself. Now, again, this information comes from CEFMS. So if you click on this box right here, which is blue when you can edit it, but gray when you cannot, when you click on this box right here, it's going to pull up a lookup for an address based off of what's in CEFMS. So two things to note. If it's not the right address according to the contractor, or if it's not showing up at all, you need to go into CEFMS and correct it in CEFMS. Otherwise, you can change the payment priority. I don't know that most people use this one, but you do have the ability to say that this obligation takes priority over that obligation. Check with your district's policy whether or not you're going to use that one. The other one that you've got are the payment terms. Now, this is just a list of the terms, because again, the terms come from CEFMS, but it'll allow you to have a really quick view of what it is by clicking on this box. And of course, you can return it to the contractor for corrections if anything is not correct. And always, you have to enter in the dates for this section right up here before you really proceed on to taking a look at what the contractor looked at, which is what the contractor submitted, which is under the request activity earnings. Oh, there's the date stuff that I was just talking about. Gotta get those filled out before. And then, oh, here's the payment part. You can change those payment priorities. Here's the button for viewing the payment terms. And we're going on the requested activity earnings tab. Now, you can't edit anything on this view. This is just a view showing you exactly what the contractor sent you. And of course, you've got these sort tiles, which you can use to change what's showing up in here. But for the most part, you're really not going to take too much look over here, because everything happens at the additional activity earnings tab, because that is where you can actually make some changes if you want to. But honestly, if you don't agree with the amount that the contractor is requesting, instead of updating this here, I would actually just return the invoice for corrections, because If you don't agree with it, there's probably a reason why. So you should probably send it back to the contractor and let them know that, hey, this isn't right because of XYZ. You can only ask for this amount of money, and I need you to fix that and send it back again. Now, the reason I point that out is because I've had a contractor or two give me a call and wanted to know, hey, my previous amount from invoice number 11 said such and such amount, but now when I have this one, it says less than that. How did that happen? They're like, they couldn't figure it out. So it took me a few minutes to go in there and take a look, and it was because even though they had requested that X amount of dollars, the government had gone into this allowed activity earnings and had modified it here. Now, you can certainly do that, but I would suggest telling the contractors so they don't get confused on the next invoice. Like, by the way, I fixed this because I'm not going to allow you to take this much money. You didn't do that much work. You're not getting that much money. This is all you get. But again, check with your district's policy about how to handle that, whether you're returning it for corrections, whether you're updating it in here and then notifying the contractor. That's dependent upon your district, your contract, and all that stuff. The next tab is the subcontractor earnings tab. This is the information that the contractor enters in. Now, there is this information here for the subcontractor earnings deducted by the contractor. That's a little bit of a misnomer because first, they need to check with you to make sure that they can actually put it back to correction, be like, hey, can't do that. Or second, the other thing about this one is even though it says it's being deducted by the contractor, actually it's going to be deducted by you. So even though the contractor or the subcontractor requested for amount and the contractor said, you didn't do your job, so I'm going to withhold this $5,000 and not do it. But that $5,000 doesn't go to the contractor. It stays with the government until the contractor releases it to the subcontractor. In that case, then it goes to the contractor and the contractor pays the subcontractor. Allowed CLIN earnings tab. This will just give you a brief summary of the CLINs themselves that you have associated with your contract and some really good information based off of that, the previous amounts, the previous percentages, quantities, and amount going up in here, and the allowed amount, that's the total amount. That's this plus what they are requesting in here. And then what is actually coming out for this invoice is showing up in here. So this column plus this column gives you these columns. And the total will show up down here. And of course, you always have a little summation down at the bottom. This will give you for the invoice. This will give you for whatever selected CLIN happens to be showing up. And you just single click on it to show what the basic preview of that is. The next is the additional earnings tab. Now, if you allow additional earnings outside of activities on your contract, then that will show up at this location right here. Check with your district's policy whether or not that is okay, but we do allow that if you need that to go in a case. If you've looked at everything else and everything else looks pretty good, you can either go over to the document package at this point, or you can go ahead and set the calculations down here. Once you've set the calculations down here, you check this box right here. Now, most people use the standard calculations with the first funding method where you pre-plan your obligations, because as long as everything is tied, as long as the RMS CLINs are correctly tied to the CEFMS obligation line items, this standard calculation will work beautifully and put everything on the right obligation line item on the obligation tab. But if for whatever reason, somewhere along the line in the modification or whatever, someone didn't link it to the right funding account or didn't link it to the right PRNC and then decided to force it to go to the correct line, obligation line item, this standard calculation is going to have issues. So if it's a brand new modification and you go into the obligations and it doesn't quite work out, I would go back and look at those modifications and make sure that they are properly linked to everything. Now, we do have a YouTube video for that one showing you how to go through, one, identify it, and two, fix it. But caveat, if you've already paid on that CLIN for that modification, you can't change anything. You have to go back and do a new one, which means it would be better to use the periodic calculation. But for the most part, most people use the standard calculation. Then they check this box. When you click on this little three buttons, it will give you this view to allow you to choose, and of course it'll tell you what the calculations are basically using for each different type, so you can decide which one you want. But basically, periodic only calculates based off of that invoice, period. Standard gives you based off of the whole contract. Now, once you check the box for additional earnings complete, you will be able to go into the obligations tab. Prior to checking that box, you cannot look at this tab. It'll say, you haven't finished this yet. You need to go back over there. But what you will get on the obligations tab after it's been completed is you'll see that the money has been appropriately set around to the obligation line items. I would always recommend that you verify this just in case, especially if you've got a new mod that just went through. Verify that it went to all of the correct locations before doing anything. You can click on any one of them to show the brief summary, what the accrual status is and what's going on with the contract. If you have any errors, those errors are going to show up in this lovely little box right here. You will need to correct those errors before you can complete anything else. Once you view this and you think everything is good to go, then you can check this little ENG 93 box, checkbox completed, and you're not done. At this point, you're not done. This just allows you to generate the ENG 93 and get ready. Now you're going to go over to the document packages and you're going to view all of the contractor added documents. And then you can also view the government documents. This is where your ENG 93 is. And this is where your calculation report is. That calculation report is actually pretty convenient for showing you how, when, where, and why the money was distributed to the various different obligations in the previous screen. But once you open up the document package, of course, you want to view everything, verify that everything is good to go. If everything is good to go, sign any documents that need to be signed, you're going to complete the package. If the contractor needs the ENG 93, you're going to need to download it and pop it into the contractor document package. But again, that's up to your districts whether or not they're going to be signing that stuff. So for now, it's still in the government document package. And of course, it is showing you how to go through and sign it. Now, when you are signing the ENG 93, there are two signature locations. So when you click on the sign button, you choose the button that you're going to do, you click on next, then you've got the screen that will show you the signature, the digital signature position. Pay attention, make sure you're signing in the right spot. If it's showing up in the right spot, you're good. If it's not, there's going to be a little ellipses button that'll show up off to the right of it, where you can double click on it and choose the correct signature location, click OK, and then click finish to finish signing the ENG 93. And of course, when you're done, complete package to make sure it gets sent to PCF. Now, that was completed. It shows accepted. You still have to take a look at the contractor document package and do the same process with that one. Now, this one, what you'll see, the status, here, let me zoom in on that so you can see that a little better. This status is showing as not complete. What that tells me is the contractor did not submit this document package to the government for review. You'll need to go in there and either have the contractor redo that or do it for them, sign anything that needs to be signed for that, complete that document package. And then once that is done, you go back to the obligations tab for the final step, which is this button to send the payment to CEFMS. This button is almost instantaneous. You're going to click on this button, send payments to CEFMS, and it's going to be in CEFMS within 30 seconds, give or take, depending on the network connection at the time. Now, if you find that it's not in CEFMS, more than likely what's happened is this button has not been clicked, because as soon as you hit this button, it's boom, gone. It gets sent. It does not wait. It does not pause. It gets sent to CEFMS immediately. This is one of those things, because it's a time-sensitive issue, we do not wait on this. It does not get waited for any reason, shape, or form. Once you send that button, once you click that button, it's in CEFMS. So, one, make sure everything is correct before you click that button. And two, make sure you click that button before you get out of it. Because if you get out of the payment and you don't click on that button, and you're sitting there waiting for it to go into CEFMS, and then the invoice is late, it's because you didn't push the button. So please push the button. All right. Now, we offer a couple little various different report options so you can preview to see what's going on. When you click on this report, you have these options here. That is the prompt pay report. You can see what it looks like. It's not going to show the signatures because this is just the instantaneous view at this time. You want to see the signatures? It's in the document package, the contractor document package. ENG 93 report, same thing. This will show you the instantaneous view. If you need to see the signatures, it's in the document package. The contract file reports, these are all of the files that are supposed to show up from the document package that are not the prompt pay report or the ENG 93. And then the check. This is literally the CEFMS check. So after it's been paid, if you want to see what the check date was, you can come in here, click on this check, and it will actually show you what that information is. Before that check has been cut, there's nothing going to be populated in this one. So once it's been cut, then you can come in here and take a look at that. You can also see some logs. Now, there's another thing. If there's an error for whatever reason in trying to send something to CEFMS, you'll see a button show up here that says CEFMS error. You're going to click on that button and see what that error message is. And then you're going to take that to CEFMS and find out what that means to see why it's not going through. There have been a couple of times that I've seen that come through, and it had something to do with there was some setting that wasn't set correctly in CEFMS or something else. I don't remember exactly what it was, but 9 times out of 10, if you've got a button up here that says CEFMS error, then you need to go to CEFMS to find out why CEFMS rejected the invoice. And if it's time sensitive, you may have to go in and manually upload it into CEFMS, depending on what that CEFMS error is. But usually, I rarely see where it says CEFMS error. Most of the time, everything goes through without any problems. Here's a preview of the prompt pay report for your reference. And then page 1 of the ENG 93, page 2 and page 3, and then the contract file report list. This is what that shows. And here's the check. And it's got all of the details that will show up on when the check, what the check number was, when the check was sent, what the earnings were, and all the other information off of that. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions for progress payments. And if there are no questions for that, then I will open it up for any other miscellaneous questions and potential demos if required, as well as show you our resource list links at the last page. So I'm going to be quiet for a couple of seconds. And if I don't hear anything, I will move on. Okay. Well, I don't hear anything about the progress payment. I'm going to go ahead and show you the resources link. So this is basically just some of the basic YouTube tutorial videos that we have for RMS that will allow you to assist you with some various different things. This is just a brief list. We have tons of stuff on our website itself. So if you don't find something on here, go to our, you can actually go to rms.usace.army.mil to get to our YouTube channel that direction. Or if you have the link for the YouTube channel itself, it's the RMS Support Center. You'll be able to see the various different playlists and things like that. Does anybody have any questions regarding anything that we talked about or just any other random beginner questions that you might have? Yes.
What's the purpose of the stored materials covered in activities button under additional earnings tab?
The stored materials, let's see here. So for different districts, sometimes the contractor has to store the materials in a storage location, so they'll need to actually pay for that kind of stuff. Whether or not a contractor is allowed to do that will be based off of the district's policy and the contract itself. But they do have the option, the contractor does have the option of using that option. So if they have to pay like a monthly fee for some storage location for wood because, say, the contract had to be, or not the contract, the construction site had to be shut down because of really, really, really bad weather, and they don't want all of the material to get damaged in that weather, then it's possible that they might need to have money for that particular one for the storage, but that's dependent upon your district's policy. Does that answer the question? Okay. While I'm waiting for another question, I'm going to go ahead and open up our website. website, rms.usace.army.mil, just so you guys know what it looked like. Down here. Okay. So on our website, if you need assistance, you can go to the support tab and you can go either submitting a ticket or, yeah, right now the only thing that we have is submit a ticket. These two things do not work right now. Just go for submit a ticket, or you can come up here for click for support. Now, another thing to keep in mind, anytime we put out a new patch, we will set what is in that patch over here in the RMS3 release notes. But when you click on this, it will give you a list of all of the release notes for every single time we updated RMS. And in those release notes, it will tell you exactly what has changed. So before we get out a YouTube video, if you're still waiting for that and you want to know what's changed, you can always come to these release notes and take a look and see what's in there, and see what changes have been made to RMS. We do have some documentation on the RMS documentation website. This is also where you can get the manuals if you want to know government manuals, contractor manuals, and you just want to see what's in there and all that other stuff. If you have to reinstall RMS for government users, the first time you install it, you have to do it through the app portal. Must be done through the app portal. But if you fall behind, then you can come to this one, Get RMS 3.0 Now Gov, to reset everything so that you can get back in and download the newest patch and start using RMS again. And you'll also notice that we have, first thing on the top, it'll show any outages that happen to be going on. Underneath that, it will show the links for all of the training. And as you can see here, we've got the slides for all of the trainings that we are doing for this month showing up right in this location. And for the submittal training, there's a lot of information in here. So I would definitely suggest going ahead and taking a look at that. And then if you want to see the YouTube video trainings for these kinds of trainings, that can come from this tab right here. I'm actually going to open it up in a new tab. And wait, I'm going to let that load. There we go. This shows all of the webinars that we have in the order that we were recently posting them. So we already have the brown bag session from last month, the CONUS advanced training that we did last week, and the CONUS beginner training will be in today. Oh wait, this was April 20th. Yeah, this was last week. So the CONUS beginner training will also be up today as well. That will be up before close of business today, probably in the next couple of hours. So that will be up today as well. Today's training will be up no later than 7 days, a week from today. And then tomorrow's training will be a week from tomorrow. And you can come in here and take a look at these and go through and look at this. Now, the reason it takes us so long is we have to go through and scrub it and make sure if we accidentally said somebody's name, we pull that out. Or if someone says their own name, we can pull that out. So that way we're protecting everybody's information. The other thing to take a look at is when you come down at the bottom, here's another link to get to our JIRA webpage. Again, remember, this does not work with Internet Explorer, and the username and password for this is separate from RMS. If you're having issues with this and you've called us in the past and you've created a ticket with us from JIRA before, then you can simply just email us. Check your old service tickets. There will be a link that will tell you how to go about sending us an email so that you can start a ticket that direction if you don't know what your password is. Otherwise, you'll have to go through and change your password. Now, there is a video on how to get all of that stuff set up on our YouTube channel as well. And then, let's see here. From this link, when you come over to the YouTube channel, if you want to see everything else, what you can do is you can click on this icon right here for the RMS Support Center, and then you can take a look at either all of the videos that we have, or you can take a look at the playlists and go and see what's in the playlist for each of the different ones. We have the troubleshooting RMS facts playlist. We've got webinar playlists, training videos, government mode, contractor mode. Most of the videos that we post onto YouTube are somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes. They're pretty quick. They're usually very focused and very specific on certain tasks, but they're there for you if you ever need them. And if you go into the videos and you know you're looking for something specific, you're going to use this search icon and I would leave it with like 1 or 2 words to search, so that way you can go ahead and find what you're looking for. All right. How do you set up the color actions? How do you set up the color actions? Are you talking about the action items? So if you're talking about for the color actions, if you're talking about the action items themselves, those are automatically set up. Wait, that was a long time ago. Hold on. I have to scroll down to the end of the chat. Sorry. Oh, there we go. All right. Looks like all of the questions in the chat were answered. I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for about 5 minutes. So if you feel like you have a question that you want to ask, go ahead. If we don't hear anything within 5 minutes, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And thank you so much. But I'm going to be quiet for a couple minutes. So if you want to talk, go ahead and ask your question. All right, doesn't sound like we have any questions. Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. We very much appreciate it. I hope this tutorial was very informative for you guys. Again, we are going to have the advanced training for OCONUS tomorrow, same time. And then again, there is the monthly training on Thursday on submittals and transmittals. Anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I think you did a good job, so appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you everybody so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you are.